Crisp has been appointed as Acting Director General of the Health Department for 3 months. This has been confirmed by the department following the precautionary suspension of Sandile Buthelezi. Earlier this month, Buthelezi and 2 other officials were arrested and charged with fraud and theft of money allocated to the country by the Global Fund. They face charges totaling more than 1 million rand linked to the irregular appointment of companies to chair a disciplinary hearing. The service providers were paid with Global Fund money intended to support training and outbreak responses. The minister has also placed Deputy Director for Hospital Services, Pesi Mahlati, and the Chief Financial Officer, Pashwa Mamukhale, on precautionary suspension. Spokesperson, Foster Mohale.
And all officials affected by the decision have been formally notified of their suspensions. In the meantime, the minister has appointed the Deputy Director General for National Health Insurance, Professor Nicholas Crisp, as Acting Director General for a period of 3 months.
Retired former Deputy National Police Commissioner Francina Vuma has told Parliament's ad hoc committee how former Minister Bheki Cele was allegedly part of a plot to kill her. Vuma says she received threats soon after raising the red flag about the 1 billion rand spent on renovating the Eskom towers. Vuma made the allegations before Parliament's ad hoc committee, which is investigating allegations of police corruption. Babalondenze reports.
Francina Vuma served as the Deputy National Commissioner for Support Services and later Asset and Legal Management before her retirement in January. She told the ad hoc committee that before her suspension in 2022 for alleged irregularities, she received death threats, which she says came from Bheki Cele. Vuma says there were meetings where Cele and others hatched up a plan to falsely implicate her in PPE corruption. Evidence leader Bongiwe Mkhize questioned her about this.
These are serious allegations that the minister and Lieutenant General Mgwenya would have wanted to kill you. How did you come to know that information?
Vuma says she was reliably informed about the plan to kill her and reported it.
The person who called me told me that he was in that meeting when that discussion took place. And he said, I must not take this thing lightly.
She said a threat assessment was conducted by Crime Intelligence, but she never took up the additional security after she was suspended. Babalondenze, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Suspended head of organised crime at the SAPS, Richard Shibiri, says he never belonged to any factions within the leadership of the police service. Testifying at the Malanga Commission today, Shibiri says he is aware of factional battles within the SAPS. One faction is said to be led by National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola, while the other is led by his deputy, Shadrack Sibiya. WhatsApp chats before the commission shows Shibiri regularly exchanged negative news articles about officers in the Masemola camp with his colleague Sergeant Fani Nkosi.
For the 38 years I had in the police, I never belonged to any faction. And I will never belong to a faction now because I'm about to exit. And I sent one positive one to say a person who seemed to be a menace is arrested. I think it is positive. But the others, I didn't have anything to send about them.
And Musiwa Lekwa's contribution to South Africa's liberation and democracy is being remembered as one that crossed party lines. The late struggle veteran is being honoured at a memorial service at the Regina Mundi Church in Soweto. Lekwata died last week at the age of 77 after a long illness. Mongezi Koko reports.
Joburg Mayor Tata Morero says South Africa's liberation history cannot be told without Musiwa Thera Lekota. The former ANC leader, who later helped form the Congress of the People, was described as a politician who remained committed to democracy even as he moved across political formations. Morero says while Lekota's political journey took different turns over the years, his core belief in accountable government, equality and a corruption-free South Africa never wavered.
The journey of his life became inseparable from the story of South Africa itself. As a young man, he found his political roots.
For many here, Lekota's legacy isn't only present in the offices he held, but in his insistence that the promises of freedom must be defended and extended to all South Africans. Mongezi Koko, Eyewitness News.
Gold is trading at $5,188.18 an ounce. The rand is at 16.36 to the dollar, 21.98 to the pound. $18.99 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $87.90 a barrel.
Irene, Pretoria, traffic sluggish on Nelmapius Drive approaching Main Road in Lombardia Estate. That's in Pretoria East. There's also slow-moving traffic. This is on Graham Linwood Road between Struben Road and Solomon Mahlangu.
In your sport, Mamelodi Sundowns defeat Orbit College to reclaim top spot in the Betway Premiership. Igor Tudor under pressure as Tottenham Hotspur lose fourth consecutive game. And the ICC reject bias claims over post-World Cup travel delays.
It's a fine afternoon in Gauteng today. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 25 and 26 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. FlySafair has announced the introduction of a fuel surcharge as a result of cost escalations linked to the Middle East conflict.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app, DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
.702 Drive with John Perlman is proudly brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 8 minutes past 3 on Wednesday, the 11th of March. This is 702 Drive with me, John Perlman. Wherever you're listening to us in 702 land, welcome to the show. The boots are now on the ground. The first soldiers that President Cyril Ramaphosa promised would be deployed to crime hotspots have taken to the streets today in Westbury, in the southwest part of Johannesburg. What do the people who've demanded action on law and order in the area think? More on that in a moment with community leader Pastor Jefferson Johnson. But if you live out in that area or in other areas where the SADF are now starting to make their presence felt, please do give us a call. I know it's early days, but often early indications give us clues as to what might happen next over time. In other stories, what's that weird and most certainly not so wonderful smell hanging over Joburg? We've been there before. I remember that this was an ever-present factor, late 1980s, early 90s. I'm trying to remember exactly when, but we'll get expert insight on this from Professor Bruce Milado at Wits University. The EFF today marched demanding the Concourse Court release its findings on Phala Phala, Parliament and the President. The EFF has for some time now been sounding the alarm, saying that they're taking way longer on this than they should. They suggest there's something funny going on. Mbegazeli Benjamin joins us from the organization Judges Matter to look at that after 4 o'clock. And what would we do in life without plumbers? Today is World Plumbers Day. Perhaps you already knew that. I suspect, like me, you didn't. But we'll take a look at how well South Africa is doing at training plumbers and putting them to work. We'll do that at 10 to 4. It's a really important issue for me because in general, we've been talking about water infrastructure. And I know there are water and sanitation engineers. Those are not necessarily jobs that you can simply describe as plumbers. But I would have thought that if we're training a strong cohort of young people who know how to work with water works and understand what happens when water doesn't work, that's got to be a national asset of some kind. So training, job opportunities, more on that, as I said, later in the hour. After a strong and very, very positive day yesterday, the markets are back in deep and somewhat treacherous waters today. The All Share is down by 3,200 points. That's a loss of 2.7%. Biggest losers on the JSE are gold companies. Harmony down by 8.4%, Goldfields by 5.6% on a day in which the gold price is actually up by $1.95. So not sure what's going on there. Some companies, though, making small gains. Outsure up by 3.2%. Karoo has gained 2.4%, and Sasol is up by 1.9%. 0.2%. That may be because the oil prices turned upwards again after some significant and sustained losses over the last 24, 36 hours perhaps. Brent crude currently trading at $91.41 an ounce, a gain of 39 cents. The rand is trading at 16 rand 41 against the dollar. That's 8 cents weaker than it was 24 hours ago. Euro will cost you 19 rand and 1 cent. That's a dip of 4 cents. 22 rand and 1 cent will get you a pound. That's also a fall of 4 cents. Stephen Curtis joining us with all the market news at 4:25. We'll get the sports news with Tolakele Mganga. Mbali Dlamini is the person keeping an eye on all the news headlines. She's back at 3:30. Karabo Chali is keeping an eye on the roads. This is 702 Drive. We're live in the place where you live. And if it's happening in 702 land, you'll hear about it from us here first. That is, of course, unless you know about something that we didn't know about. So then we're going to depend on hearing it from you. Do give us a call if you've seen interesting things, if you have come across breaking news that we may not be aware of. And just to repeat my request, if you're out in any of those communities in southwest Joburg, where the SANDF have moved in fulfillment of an undertaking made at the last State of the Nation address, well, give us a call and tell us what you've seen and what you make of it all. 072 702 1702 for your WhatsApps, 011 883 0702. It's 13 minutes past 3. This is 702 Drive.
702.
Let's walk the talk.
So let's focus our attention now on some of the things that we like to talk about, inquire about, think about. Some of them, of course, are connected to the major things happening in the news. By the way, there's news coming out from Fly SAFair about a quite significant price increase. That's because, you know, when we talk about the oil price going up and we talk about fuel prices going up, my mind automatically goes to the extent to which this affects me directly, i.e. when I go and put some diesel or petrol in a vehicle. But aviation fuel is spiking sharply, and Fly SAFair have indicated that they have no choice but to respond with a price hike. We'll talk about that in a lot more detail later in the show. 14 minutes past 3, as I said, but some of the things we also talk about are just derived from things we've seen, done, heard about, read about, and talked about amongst ourselves. Jonathan Fairbairn, Kabazela, you heard him yesterday. He was up in the northern part of KZN enjoying the wonders of that area, and in particular the Tlutlue Mfolozi Game Reserve, where he was a guest of Ezemvelo KZN, the conservation body in that province. But Jonathan, welcome back. While you were driving down the N2, you saw something rather interesting which you wanted to share.
Yeah, afternoon to you, John, and afternoon to our 702 family. So I noticed it in particular coming back from the park, and this was now traveling on the N2 going towards Richards Bay Airport. And I mean, there's a lot of trucks on the N2.
Yes.
Very nice road, I must say, very well maintained,
is, eh?
very busy, but lots of trucks. And there's also lots of the paper companies have got those forests with all the trees on either side, right? So ever so often on the side of the road, on the left-hand side, maybe a kilometer in between, whatever it is, there are guys that are standing on the side of the road, and they have this brown liquid in reused Coca-Cola plastic bottles.
Okay.
And obviously it's not Coca-Cola, because it's quite a lightish looking liquid.
So more like a mud brown or
mud
sandy brown,
yeah. And some of them then obviously had some polystyrene containers as well that they had there, so I don't know what it was. But I was very curious to find out what on earth this brown liquid is that was in these bottles.
Yes.
Because they were all up and down this road. I mean, how much it costs and what is it? What does it do for you? What does it taste like? Nobody had stopped.
Yes.
No trucks had stopped on the side or anything to buy it. But, I mean, what is this stuff? And then I thought to myself, you know, that's quite interesting because maybe that's specifically, you know, to KZN and that particular area. So maybe on your travels, when you're driving whichever province it may be, what are some of the interesting things? We're not talking about traffic lights now.
No.
We see many things in the Joburg traffic lights. But what are some of the stuff that you find in different provinces, it could be, when you're driving, that are interesting things on the side of the road that are for sale?
So, can I ask, did you ask what it is? Did you find out?
No, I didn't pull over.
I think I've got an idea.
Have you?
Could be an aphrodisiac.
Okay.
When I saw your smile, I thought maybe. Yeah.
Do you know what it's made of? I mean, what the contents are, or is it just described as that, and people take it on faith?
Yeah, I think it's a traditional aphrodisiac that
Does it
people
work?
I wouldn't know. So yeah, what it's made out of, I have no idea, but that's usually what it sounds like. Or
so if it's an aphrodisiac in a Coke bottle, I doubt like it's got a zero version or light. You know, there's only one. There we go. Okay. Well, anyone who knows and has insight into that, interesting things I've seen on the side of the road. I mean, this is not unusual now, but in the early, let me put it this way. Many years ago, I used to drive down to the Eastern Cape coast, but I would go on the road that takes you through Craddock. I think it might be the N12, but I could be wrong. I'll double check. N9 maybe. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The community around Craddock, I think, were the first ones to do those wire windmills. And initially, you would just see a couple of people selling them, and then literally there's dozens and dozens of people selling. And it's not the busiest of roads. I mean, it's a busy road because people are going to Gqeberha. They might be using that as a way to get to Buffalo City and other centers like Qonce. And you know, it's a busy stretch when you get down to the N2. Anyway, that's the one. And then the other, driving from Harare to Lake Kariba. To Lake Kariba or Vic Falls. I'm trying to remember which. I'll have to just double check this on a map. No, but in any case, we're driving to Kariba, and you'll understand why I'm making that point. As you get closer, about 30, 40, 50 Ks away, there's just one person after another selling worms for people who want to go fishing. But the interesting thing about it is not so much the worms, because, you know, worms are worms, but the way they advertise the words. So in the beginning, there was signs saying, big worms, giant worms. And then obviously somebody said puff adder worms to suggest that his were big. And then we had anaconda worms. I never stopped to compare the sales pitch with the reality. But it's a wonderful part of South African life, actually, is that trading on the side of the road and the way people pitch their wares. So if you've got a nice story to tell, or maybe at some point in your life, or maybe even now, you're somebody on the side of the road trying to sell stuff, you've got a story to share, please do. It's 19 minutes past 3. Speaking of the side of the road, let's talk about the road itself and get the traffic.
Well, at this stage in the city of Tshwane, Irene, traffic already sluggish on Nelmapius Drive, approaching Main Road, while in Lombardy Estate, there's slow-moving traffic on Graham Linwood Road between Struben and Solomon Mahlangu. And in Germiston, expect some delays on the N3 southbound from the Ilans interchange to Rand Airport interchange. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
John Perlman
On 702.
3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, just a couple of responses as to what's being sold on the side of the road on the N2 that Kabazela saw but never had a chance to check out. You do not want to miss your flight. Malusi says it's honey. Okay. And somebody else says it is Hlonyane Artemisia. It came up during COVID in Limpopo. You will find it also. I don't know what Artemisia is. I'm going to have to Google it. Maybe when you find something on Google that makes you laugh, you refer to it as giggle. But I'll have to Google it and see what Artemisia is. I do know that the herbal medicine from which the most effective anti-malarial, well, it's not an anti-malarial, it's a cure for you when you have malaria, is derived from a Chinese medicine, I think, called artemisinin. But anyway, I'm floundering, as you can guess. So do give us a call on that. First of all, if you know what Artemisia is. By the way, if you sent me that, maybe you'll be able to tell me. Stephanie also says it's honey. So there you go. Honey is winning as an explanation for what Kabazela saw, and we're drifting quite far away from the explanation offered by Karabo Chale. Cyrus says in Joburg there's a 20 Rand burger that he's been that offered on the sale of the for sale on the side of the road. He says, yet the price, and it tastes nice, but the price made me have a lot of questions. 20 Rand burger is pretty good value. And Tsepo, even if they do have no overheads, Tsepo says a Makosa golf shirt for 200 Rand. That would be a bargain too. 22 minutes past 3.
Drive home with John Perlman
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Well, as I look up at two TV screens, we've got ENCA and Newsroom Africa up. I don't know what's on the SABC at the moment. We'll give it a change. But both of them, and they have for some time now, have been out in Westbury and showing the SANDF, which is now out on the streets of that particular Joburg community. I believe they've conducted a raid on an apartment block in Westbury. But this is the beginning, obviously, of what was first promised by President Cyril Ramaphosa in the State of the Nation address, but has also raised many questions and debates around issues of practicality. Some legal questions have been asked, and sustainability is another concern. Well, the people of Westbury undoubtedly would want something that would present some kind of sustainable solution to the difficulties they've faced. Part of those difficulties are related to gang violence in the community, but also their proximity to some old and no longer legally mined gold mines has made them vulnerable to the appalling consequences of having zama-zamas in the area. Pastor Jefferson Alistair Johnson is a community leader, someone who's been very active on law and order issues, and he's with us now. Pastor, welcome and thanks very much for your time. The SANDF has arrived. First of all, what are you hearing from the streets? What are people concluding as to whether this is a good thing or not?
Well, thank you so much for having me, my brother. So firstly, personally, this is me personally. I think that, well, number one, government failed us as a community, shall I say, as a colored people, with regards to the issue of gangsterism, right? Because I would resort to after having done everything regarding policing, I would then resort to deploying the SANDF, which I feel is almost like a fist in the community face, because now you're bringing in the army to obviously do what we know they do best. That's Kopskit and Donor, which we don't need at this current moment. What we needed was and this is what my cry was for many years on Info, is the fact that I needed the police to intervene. Intervene meaning that they have all the strategy and all the know-how of how to infiltrate the gangsters. They know all the names. They obviously know all the drug dealers. They know everything from the hierarchy of whoever the gangster top is to the lowest one. So you can get them all in, and you can obviously have implemented peace for them to resort to bringing in the SANDF at this current moment, which their mandate is completely different.
And to what extent, I mean, I did, and perhaps I was a little sweeping in the way I presented my intro, Pastor, that Westbury is also affected by zama-zamas and illegal mining. Would that be more true of Bosmont, areas like Noordgezicht, or are you paying a price for the failure to curb that as well?
I think that's also one of the things that we are struggling with, because I think once again the government has all the know-how of how to infiltrate that part. I mean, like, you have learned people that is there that obviously knows how to attack that situation for them to now infiltrate us with regards to SANDF. You know, I believe that Westbury is 15 minutes from Riverlea, 15 minutes from Bosmont, well, 10 minutes from Bosmont, to 5 minutes, shall I say. That they're not really that majorly affected by that, as opposed to what the people suffer in Riverlea and obviously Horseshoe and Noordgezicht.
And just finally, I mean, was there any engagement with people like yourselves, other community leaders, saying the soldiers are coming? Obviously, they're not going to give you their detailed plans, but to say they're going to be there for 5 days, 7 days, 6 days. Have you been consulted and informed and prepared in any way at all?
Absolutely not. I think it's just the mere fact that the president gave out that announcement to say that they will be deploying to all these dangerous areas. I would say personally, colored areas, because those are the areas that is affected by the gangs. So I would. There was also no formal meetings with the community
Right.
leaders with regards to how we'll be bringing them in and however long they will be here. Nothing like that. Now, they just made their rounds and then they dropped off a few, and they're now walking the streets of Westbury. And I'm saying, I stand to a lot of fear with regards to that, simple boys that, I would think that Occupy would be a problem on the street at this current moment, because those are things that they cannot do. You understand?
Yes.
So, hey, it's a very fearful situation, but also one that will beat you up in the face. That's it.
Thank you so much, Pastor Jefferson Alistair Johnson, community leader in Westbury. If the SANDF has come to a place where you live, you may want to call us if you live in Westbury, or perhaps this is starting now to impact neighboring communities. Sophiatown comes to mind. Coronationville would be another. Please feel free to call in and give us your thoughts. 27 minutes past 3.
John is on X.
At John Perlman.
Right, let's get to this story then. FlySAF has announced that they will be introducing a temporary fuel surcharge. This after the war in and around Iran has led to the spike in the price of jet fuel at South African coastal airports. We understand that has risen almost 70% in just 1 week. So what is the fuel surcharge and how will it work? Kirby Gordon is Chief Marketing Officer at FlySAF Air. Mr. Gordon, welcome and thanks very much for your time. Detail for us, please, what happens with this surcharge. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. Yes, so we're going to be looking to implement a surcharge. Obviously, we've been absorbing the effect of the price increase now for a little while, but unfortunately, it's just reached a point where that's untenable, and unfortunately, the surcharge has now become necessary. So what will happen is that rather than just simply upping fares, we want customers to know exactly what they'll be paying for, and so we're going to articulate a specific surcharge that will be levied against each ticket. It'll be something that is there separately and transparently, so that customers can see exactly what it is, and obviously something that we aim to adjust as the situation progresses, and then ultimately, when it's all resolved, remove.
So I'm flying to Cape Town on Friday. I don't mean literally, but I'm just giving it as a hypothetical because this takes effect from 12 March, which is tomorrow. So I jump on a plane to Cape Town on Friday. What are you going to charge me? And will you collect it when I check in, or am I going to have to? How's it going to work?
No, crucial point. So if you're an existing ticket holder, your ticket still stands. There's no service levied on that.
Okay.
It'll only be for sales from tomorrow onwards. We're taking a view to say that we only levy this on departures up until the 12th of May. So anything beyond that, if you're forward booking for a long far out departure, you won't be charged a surcharge on that. So it'll be something that you pay when you actually pay for the ticket itself.
Okay.
At this stage, our analysts are busy working on the final numbers to determine exactly what it's going to be. We're obviously basing it on the actual increase that we're experiencing. We're then moderating that by virtue of the length of the route. Because obviously that has bearing on how much fuel one would burn during the duration. And then we're looking at what we can do in terms of tankering and finding the cheapest places to buy the fuel. So we're trying to moderate the number by that to bring it down to be as low as possible. But the final numbers will be decided today and published to our website this evening.
I would assume this is obviously a FlySAF decision and initiative, but within the larger community of people who run and service airlines in probably South Africa, certainly, but possibly even in the region. There are conversations going on about the state of availability of aviation fuel pricing you're already acting on. What can you share with us? Because yesterday we had a very interesting and I think important conversation with another of the stakeholders. And they were just talking about how they don't get a sense of a national plan being in place, of any kind of preparation for worst case scenarios. What can you tell us about the aviation industry? How's that looking?
Yeah, so at this stage, look, we are also at the mercy of the bigger planning committees. I mean, it's probably best to put this sort of question in terms of the availability to the authorities there, like the FIA, SA, for example.
Right.
What we're assured of is that there is availability of jet fuel to see us out for the foreseeable future. I think what's playing in our favor at this stage, ironically, is that we don't have those large wide-body jets coming in with the frequencies at which they do come in from the Gulf countries. They're big fuel drinkers. workers. So at least what was apportioned for them and available in South Africa will now ultimately be able to feed a domestic network for some time. And those multiples work out quite nicely in our favor. But obviously, this is a primary concern of ours and something that we're in constant engagement with the relevant authorities trying to ensure that we can, keep going.
Kirby Gordon, Chief Marketing Officer of Fly SAF Air. I would imagine their website this evening is going to be incredibly busy because come 1 minute past midnight, this temporary fuel surcharge will kick in. By the way, the interview I was referring to yesterday, I didn't reference it properly. And I really recommend you go to primemediaplus.com. Have a listen to what Peter Morgan, CEO of the Liquid Fuels Wholesalers Association, had to say to us about their concerns about what they believe is an inadequate level of coordination, planning and information sharing in the, very broadly speaking, the fuel sector. Check that out. He had some important things to say. 28 minutes to 4. Well, let's get the very latest eyewitness news now with Mbali Dlamini. Just like us, Mbali, you guys are very concerned and focused on that spike in air ticket prices. What have you got?
That's correct, John. A very concerning story indeed. FlySafair says it has no choice but to pass on the spike in fuel costs, well, some of it to its travelers. The airline is introducing the temporary fuel surcharge, which will be in place from tomorrow until sometime in May. FlySafair says price increases are as a direct result of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, which has seen a key oil shipping transit shut down. It says jet fuel pricing has spiked by 70% in a week. On Monday, the price of Brent crude surged past the $100 mark before settling down again. Kirby Gordon is FlySafair's Chief Marketing Officer.
Surcharges will apply from tomorrow for bookings with departures up until the 12th of May. The exact amounts are currently being finalized by our analysts. They will be based on the current increases that we're experiencing and levied as a set amount by route, depending on the length of that route. We're also factoring in anything that we can do to reduce these surcharges in terms of tankering fuel so that we fill up where it's most cost efficient to do so.
The case against 6 family members accused of killing 9 people for insurance payouts has now been transferred to the Polokwane High Court. They appeared briefly in the Polokwane Magistrates Court today, facing charges including murder, fraud and money laundering. According to police, between 2013 and 2024, the group fraudulently took out multiple life and funeral policies on several victims, with the total value estimated at around 10 million rand. Limpopo NPA spokesperson Mashudu Malabi says the accused face a total of 47 counts.
They are facing 47 counts, including murder, money laundering, fraud and receiving proceeds of unlawful activities. The matter is postponed to 25 March 2026.
6 former Milnerton High School learners who were expelled for alleged bullying are appealing the school governing body and Western Cape Education Department's decision. The boys made a brief appearance in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today, where they face various counts of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. The charges relate to at least 8 incidents of alleged assault at the school, including a video which went viral on social media, sparking nationwide outrage. Carlo Peterson has more.
The 6 accused learners were hauled before Cape Town Magistrates Court in October last year after a viral video showed them attacking a 16-year-old learner. 2 minor learners who face the same charges are attending proceedings in the Child Justice Court. Last month, the Western Cape Education Department confirmed the department upheld a recommendation by the school governing body to expel 6 learners from the school. WCED spokesperson Brona Hammond says 5 of the expelled learners are in grade 12 and 1 in grade 10.
The 6 learners have subsequently appealed this decision, which is now being considered by the provincial minister as the final appeal authority.
All of the accused learners will be back in court on the 24th of April. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
And 30 people have died in flooding caused by heavy rains in Ethiopia. The latest disaster follows a series of deadly landslides in the southern part of the country. Regional authorities have warned that further disasters could occur as seasonal rains continue. East Africa has been battered by heavy downpours in the recent days, and multiple studies have been conducted to track the increasing frequency of extreme wet and dry periods in the region in the last 20 years. It's a fine afternoon in Gauteng today. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 25 and 26 degrees.
Germiston heading towards Katlong. Bumper traffic on the N3 southbound from the Elands Interchange to Rand Airport Interchange. Bryanston also expects some delays on Winnie Mandela Drive between Main Road and the N1. Irene traffic sluggish on Nalmepius Drive approaching Main Road.
The top story in EWN, FlySafe says it has no choice but to pass on some of the spike in fuel price costs to its travellers.
Clement Maniatella.
Weekday mornings,
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
Leo Bozel was speaking at a conference. Now, I have a few things that I take issue with what he said. Number one, you don't come to our country and tell us that you don't care what our courts say. In this country, we respect the judiciary. So I find his comment that he doesn't care what the courts say about the Dubuli Bunu song arrogant. I find it to be disrespectful to our institutions. Does that mean that he can't disagree with our courts? No, it doesn't mean that. In fact, he can say that he holds a different view to what our courts have ruled around the song. But you cannot say to your hosts, you don't care what their courts say. I think this conduct is undiplomatic.
Clement Maniatella.
9 to 12 on 702.
For Olwethu Nxumalo of Roadside Rentals and Custom Dressmaking, every stitch is a story. What's your Telkom business chapter?
What made Telkom business stand out from all the rest was how fast everything was.
And with voice calling and fiber from Telkom Business, she stitches together inquiries and sources fabric online without dropping a thread.
Get unlimited VoIP 1 from 99 Rand per month and Stream Connect Fiber from 399 Rand per month. Call 10213 or click telkom.co.za. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
Stand a chance to win a share of a red-hot 3 million rand with the Hollywood Bet Spinner Zonke jackpot race. Enter the chase and enjoy a feast of fun where every spin could unlock riveting rewards. To start your adventure, bet 2 rand or more on selected habanero games every Wednesday, Friday and Saturday between 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. The racing revolution starts now. Dive in and prepare to take top spot.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Every day I'm hustling. It's our reality as business owners. And it's good to know that there's someone out there who takes care of the business that makes the business. Gotta love My Way Business Insurance. Saving big on premiums with 24/7 emergency services, plus My Business Assist with marketing, legal, and labor advice services.
Visit myway.co.za or dial 0860 64 64 64 and get a quote today. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and standard rates apply. My Way. Live your way.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Good afternoon, Tata John and 702 Land. I sell honey. My honey company is called Radinotsi Borderay. So what I find funny when I sell, because I sell out of my car, I guess it's from the side of the road sometimes, and then you tell people which flavor of the honey you have, Malta, Flora, Macadamia, Eucalyptus, and stuff. What I find funny is that people will ask you whether you poured that flavor into the honey, and you have to explain, no, the flavor comes from the plant that the bees pollinated. That's how we get the flavors. I don't have the flavors with me to put after the bees have produced the honey. The flavor comes from the plant that the bee pollinated. Thank you.
Afternoon, Uncle John. I'm listening to you. I'm still in the office. So what he's talking about, he should have stopped and asked them. It's Amarula beer. Amarula beer. It's a homemade beer, but then made out of Amarula. And you find it even when you drive from Joburg going towards the northwest side, going towards Hartebees. You find them, a lot of them. I think like each and every place, like you drive less than a kilometer and then you bump into them, less than a kilometer and then you bump into them. They, on the side of the road with a 2-liter bottle, they selling Amarula beer. It's Amarula beer, that is John.
Thanks for that. So Kabazela, if you weren't with us when he was just chatting about his trip back down the N2, he was heading to the airport at Richards Bay, having been in the area of Hluhluwe, further north. He saw this stuff being sold in used Coke bottles, and we were trying to figure out what it is. And we asked the broader question, what interesting things have you seen for sale on the side of the road in South Africa? Muleko says herbs and herbal teas, prickly pears in Limpopo and other areas. I know the prickly pears very much in that drier part of the Eastern Cape around Addo. That's where I've seen that. Farm produce in the Free State and the Western Cape, crabs and fish in KZN, and edible soil in other areas. Not something I've come across. And he finishes by saying, interesting indeed. Tembisa says Adidas and Nike and Polo track suits. Okay. What else? Yeah, lots and lots of interesting things. Lots of discussion around Artemisia, which is a herbal derivation, I think, of a tree called wormwood. Malusi has this to say about the Coke bottles, and he's got the geography of this absolutely right. He said, it's honey. They get it from the gum trees within bees as you drive to Richards Bay. They used to sell it as honeycomb in containers, then later sold it in Coke bottles. My dad used to buy it from them. You find them between Mtuba and Richards Bay. So there we go. Okay, plenty of stuff. What else have you seen on the side of the road being sold? Give us a call on that. 072 702 1702. And please, if you're out in Westbury or any other area where soldiers are being deployed today, tell us what you've seen, tell us what you think. It's 17 minutes to 4.
EWN Sport.
Tolakele, very good afternoon to you. Interesting football last night. More to come tonight. You've got all the sport.
Absolutely, John. And Mamelodi Sundowns have returned to the summit of the Betway Premiership following a routine 2-0 win over Orbit College. Goals from Miguel Rosinho and Ikram Reyners secured the Brazilians a 7th successive league victory as they move 3 points clear of Orlando Pirates. Miguel Cardoso believes they're now performing at a level that's showing why they're champions.
Well, the team is showing the values we wanted to have in the locker room, renewed the values, understood how to be together. They are committed. I think we have many players, or almost all players, in a good space in terms of performance. That gives us obviously confidence. Today they showed everybody that we put it inside. So pretty happy obviously with the moment, but the feet on the ground as we are now so that we can look for the next challenge and focus on it as much as possible.
In first leg, last 16 results from the UEFA Champions League. Barcelona drew 1-1 with Newcastle United. Liverpool lost 1-0 to Galatasaray. Bayern Munich are all but through to the quarterfinals after thrashing Atalanta 6-1, while Atletico Madrid were 5-2 winners over struggling Tottenham Hotspur. Igor Tudor has only been in charge for 26 days and overseen 4 straight defeats, and he's discussed if being Spurs manager is an impossible job.
I recognize what we are and which problems we have. I recognize that every game happens something, sometimes very difficult to explain. I see also the wish to play to do the right things. We start good, let's say these 2-3 minutes, I feel that we are in the game. These things when they happen, what I said before, in the moment where we are now, unfortunately, is like that. Even these slippery things happen, it's explain the moment because they didn't do. The pitch was the same for both teams.
The ICC have rejected suggestions of unequal treatment after the West Indies and South Africa's squads were stranded in India for more than a week. That follows the T20 World Cup. The Windies waited 9 days for a charter flight that was repeatedly delayed, while South Africa were forced to remain in Kolkata following their semi-final exit and will only return back today. The ICC insists their decisions have been driven by safety, feasibility and welfare, with airlines having to cancel or reroute flights because of the war in the Middle East. And Bam Adebayo scored 83 points, the second highest number in an NBA game, as the Miami Heat beat the Washington Wizards 150-129. The center record saw him pass Kobe Bryant's 81-point tally, which was set back in 2006, while Wilt Chamberlain's record of 100 points has stood since 1962. Adebayo also set a new record as he scored 36 of 43 free throws.
To me, it's Warner and what he would say. seeing somebody, obviously you've seen 60, 70, but like to be 83 and you pass him, in my mind it's like, what would he say to me? Because I've always wanted to have a conversation with him, but he'll probably say me do it again. But just a surreal moment being in the company with somebody you idolized growing up.
Tholakele Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Okay, let's get the latest from out on the roads. Germiston is experiencing a really early version of rush hour. Not sure of the reason, but I suspect this man knows. Karabo.
Well, it's not yet clear, John, what's causing this unusual delay at this time of the afternoon. So that's in Germiston heading towards Katlong. Bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is on the N3 southbound between the Inlands Interchange and Rand Airport. The Rand Airport Interchange. So if you're on that route, it looks like there's an accident scene there, John, from what I understand. So if you have more information, please, you can WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic. Brakpan still in Ekurhuleni. Traffic pressure N17 eastbound. This is approaching Carnival City, while in Bryanston also expect some delays on Winnie Mandela Drive between Main Road and the N1. Irene, traffic sluggish on Mapius Drive, approaching Main Road. Also in Lombardy Estate, still in Pretoria East, there's slow-moving traffic on Graham Linwood Road between Struben and Solomon Mahlangu. I'll have your next Eyewitness News traffic update just after 4.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
You're now listening to 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
702 Drive still to come after 4 o'clock. We are going to be taking a closer look at what many people have described as a really bad smell over Johannesburg, pervasive in some parts of the city, perhaps not as prominent in others. I have to say it's not something that I've noticed, but this has been going on and off for many, many years. What's it all about? Professor Bruce Malado is an expert on air quality at Wits University. He is our guest after 4 o'clock, 12 minutes to 4.
John is on X.
At John Perlman.
So we've been asking about interesting things you have seen for sale on the side of the road. Kolani says on the N12 around Eldorado Park, people sell puppies right on the freeway. While I've never seen anyone stop to buy, I assume there's a market because they are still there. Speaking of animals, somebody else points out that if you are heading towards Sun City, you may come across people on the side of the road who are selling tortoises. So I've never seen that, never heard of that before. Tolakele, a question we asked, interesting, unusual things that you've seen for sale on the side of the road. And if you know what the guys on the side of the N2 are selling in used Coca-Cola bottles, we would be grateful for any insight you might have. So far we've had honey, aphrodisiacs, we've had Artemisia, which is a herbal remedy for all sorts of things. I mentioned earlier that I think it's the base of a medicine called Coartem, which is used in the treatment of malaria. But anything you've seen on the side of the road doesn't have to be in a bottle.
John, for that Coke bottle one, I think we would call it umhlonyana.
Okay.
Yeah, so it just helps deal with like any ailments that people have. It's not so much interesting, but it's very much not the real thing. A lot of the times when you go to stadiums on the side of the road, they're selling football kits that have never been released by some clubs ever, where it's just like the logo of something, and then you're like, but that was on that kit, and this part is from another kit. But when they go to stadiums, they've just put it together. And because you're in the hype and the buzz of the day, people are just buying it, and it's only later on where they're realizing that actually it's a fake.
So just on the subject of umhlonyana, you said umhlonyana or umhlonyane?
Umhlonyana.
Umhlonyana. The internet tells me Artemisia afra, commonly known as African wormwood in English, wilde als in Afrikaans, lingana in Sotho and Tswana is called umhlonyane, but you're saying umhlonyana in isiZulu. It's a highly aromatic perennial herb that can grow up to 2 meters in height. So we getting, I think that's the most common, either honey or umhlonyana. because it's on the N2, which is the road that Jono was driving somewhere between Hluhluwe and Richards Bay. A couple of voice notes on the subject.
Hi, good afternoon, John. What I've seen being sold on the side of the road in Limpopo, especially alongside the N1 highway, which is not safe. It's the libido booster, which is also called Mpesu. They also have quite a lot of remedies, African traditional remedies or traditional medicines used for diabetes, hypertension, and a whole sorts of other diseases as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for those. Please do keep them coming on 011-883-0702. If you missed it, by the way, we were talking earlier to Kirby Gordon from SAFE about a temporary fuel surcharge that will apply on tickets booked from tomorrow all the way through to the 12th of May. You want to maybe make sure, particularly if you've got travel planned, that you find out as much as possible about that. Mr. Gordon's interview with us available on primemediaplus.com.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
We know how important the U.S. is to South Africa. How important is South Africa to the U.S.?
It's important enough that you send somebody who has fear of the president when and if it's necessary. South Africa once again becomes a major transit point for much international commerce. And it's important because South Africa has been one of the few countries in the world to be visibly supportive of Iran.
Brooke Spector, U.S. policy expert, reflecting on the first public address by the U.S. ambassador to South Africa.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Celebrate the power of African storytelling. Join Freedom Park in collaboration with the South African State Theatre for the 13th Ungasali Storytelling Festival on 14 March 2026. It takes place at the South African State Theatre in Pretoria. Experience powerful performances through poetry, theatre, music and traditional storytelling as we celebrate the voices and stories that shape our heritage. Tickets are available at Web Tickets for 150 Rand. The Ungasali Storytelling Festival, where African stories come alive. Don't miss it.
LLB graduates can fast-track their legal career with the Law Society of South Africa's PVT School for Legal Practice. LPC accredited, this 4-month practice-ready course, which is taught by practicing lawyers, can reduce your PVT contract by 12 months for admission. Study by day, after hours, or via distance at campuses nationwide. The first 2026 intake runs from January to April. Applications close 31 October 2025. Apply now at lssalead.org.za. That's lssalead.org.za.
Let's hear from Dr. Armand, owner of Monument Dental, why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance.
It was one call and I was covered immediately. We are very happy with the premium we're paying. I wish I did it sooner.
For dentistries, general medical practices and all other businesses, get a quote today and see why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Driving the conversation on 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Powered by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Good afternoon, John and 702 listeners. John, I'm just backlogged here. I have a question. Fly SAA has increased their flights. Okay, the war in Middle East is only running into 2 weeks now. And we haven't even purchased any new sort of fuel, or whether it's refined, whether it's Brent Q. We haven't. I was listening to one of the analysts saying we do have refined oil coming to our side, which means this was purchased before the war. Why are they increasing fuel within 2 weeks of the war? Please, can get someone to explain this to us? 600 meters turn right. Max here from Honeydew.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very valid question. And I have to say it's a question I probably should have asked Kirby Gordon, because you make a very, very valid point that they're currently flying on fuel that they would have purchased before the crisis arose. The counter argument might be, and I'm just stating it rather than advocating it or suggesting I accept it, would be that those price hikes are inevitable. So let's get in ahead of it and anticipate that by the time people who book now between those dates will be actually flying in planes that have more expensive fuel. But I think it's a very valid question. You did, by the way, say fly SAA. Just to be clear, this is an announcement by SAF Air, and I don't believe SAA has said anything in this regard. 702 Drive.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
Now, today is World Plumbers Day, and I thought we would first of all acknowledge this absolutely essential service. I mean, I know we're always delighted and pleased to see people when they're our friends or family or people we're madly in love with, but I would think the greeting that plumbers get at the door when they arrive to come and solve a problem must be right up there in terms of warmth. So, where are we exactly with the state of plumbing in South Africa? Are we training enough people? Do we have enough plumbers? Steve Brown is Executive Director at the Institute of Plumbing South Africa. We welcome him to 702 Drive. Mr. Brown, I never thought I'd ever end up saying, despite a long career in radio, Happy World Plumbers Day, but I get to say it to you today. Do we have enough plumbers in South Africa, and do we have enough facilities for training them? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, John, and to your listeners. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time. I do apologize for some delays I've had on the phone. But yes, I think in terms of plumbing, we certainly have our challenges. In terms of training, there are really good training schools that are out there for students that want to go into it. From an IOPSA perspective, we do a lot of career days and visiting some of the TVET colleges. But certainly, I think our challenge is unqualified individuals doing plumbing. It's a very unregulated business. So, the enforcement in terms of relevant bylaws, etc., are just not being enforced, which puts the consumer and our waterways at risk.
So if somebody wants to get onto one of the courses you've been talking about, what do they need to have done before? Do they need, for example, to have a matric? How low or high is the entry bar set?
So grade 10 with maths. Obviously, what we would like to do is encourage individuals that want to go into the trade is go and have a look at it. It's not for everybody, but go and have a look, spend some time with a plumber, and then obviously through that, go to one of the TVET colleges or the private colleges and go into there, get a learnership. 3 years later, do your trade test, and then qualified and get into the marketplace.
I know that, some of the water system problems that we have need dealing with by water engineers, sanitation engineers. I'm not sure I know the correct term, but I'm sure it's clear what I'm asking. But is there a role in municipalities, given the unbelievable level of leaks that we have, for people who are trained as plumbers? Or is that a task that somebody else needs to try and help, particularly our metros, but not only deal with?
Yeah, so I think, John, there's different levels of services that are provided by the local authorities, which is your small communication pipe or that comes into the units.
Right.
And then you've got your bulk services and that. So there is training that goes in that. A large majority of the individuals are plumbers that are doing it. But sometimes it's not so much the individual, it's more about the material that they're using.
Right.
Is it compliant? Is it there? And that's something that we need to address.
And finally, Steve Brown, obviously you playing a role in the industry body, in the trade federation, whatever I should call it. I don't know how much time. I assume you were a plumber once. If you don't get to do it anymore, do you miss it?
Look, I always a tradesman. Yes, I was. I've been, in the industry for over 50 years.
Right.
And it's always a privilege to go out and look with a new generation of plumbers that are coming through. We had training yesterday where you passing your knowledge over to the younger generation coming through. But it is very rewarding, John. I think that, plumbing is always one of those grudge bars. But yeah, they are professional and they do what they do, and they do it well in the majority of cases.
Thanks so much, Steve Brown, Executive Director at the Institute of Plumbing South Africa. Today is World Plumbers Day. And by the way, if it's a career that you've embarked on, or it's one in which, perhaps you run a business and you're looking to recruit some people, critical service. I can tell you my smile is a wide one, and the kettle's already on at the point at which the plumber arrives. My only regret is I may not have biscuits, but we are very pleased when they show up. So if you've got a foot or a toe in the industry in some way or another, share a story. 072 702 1702. It's just gone 4 o'clock.
This is EWN.
The SANDF gets to work in gang-riddled areas in Joburg, and FlySafe introduces a fuel surcharge as the Middle East conflict rages on. Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. Let's begin in Westbury, where dozens of SANDF soldiers are moving in armoured vehicles in the community, searching properties for contraband and illegal firearms. This is part of efforts to restore law and order in some of Gauteng's most crime-ridden areas. In a State of the Nation address this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa committed to supporting police by bolstering boots on the ground with the SANDF as they continue to fight crime. Mongezi Koko is in Westbury for us this afternoon and joins us live on the line. Mongezi, what can you tell us about today's operation?
Mbali, the SANDF started its visibility patrols earlier in Eldorado Park before moving through River Lee. Now, the operation is focused here in Westbury, with teams expected to move into Sophiatown a bit later. Soldiers working alongside SAPS members have been searching homes and identified properties as part of a broader effort to clamp down on gang activity and illegal weapons. Mbali, residents in Westbury have for years complained about persistent gang-related violence and frequent shootings in the area. One father told EWN he fetched his daughter from school early today out of fear for her safety, saying several children in the community have been caught in recent shootings.
In all fairness, I'm actually pleased and happy. Like I say, thank you to the service that they come.
Now, Mbali, while some community members have welcomed the military presence, many say they want to see a longer-term security plan to help restore safety in the area. Mongi Ziko, Eyewitness News, reporting live in Westbury.
Well, we will continue to bring you more from that story with our reporter Mongezi Koko, who is on the ground for us in Westbury this afternoon. FlySafe is introducing fuel surcharges as a result of cost escalations linked to the Middle East conflict. The airline says the temporary measure will come into effect tomorrow. It says the charge will apply only to flights departing on or before the 12th of May. It says jet fuel prices at South African coastal airports are now up by approximately 70% in just 1 week. Tensions recently escalated in the Middle East after the US and Israel attacked Iran 2 weeks ago. This resulted in Iran embarking on retaliatory attacks in the Gulf region. Kobe Gordon is FlySafe's chief marketing officer.
Surcharges will apply from tomorrow for bookings with departures up until the 12th of May. The exact amounts are currently being finalized by our analysts. They will be based on the current increases that we're experiencing and levied as a set amount by route, depending on the length of that route. We're also factoring in anything that we can do to reduce these surcharges in terms of tankering fuel so that we fill up where it's most cost efficient to do so.
Suspended top cop Richard Shibiri says he never spoke to alleged crime boss Vusimuzi Matlala about police operations despite frequent contact between the two. Shibiri has been testifying at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry today about his relationship with Matlala. The suspended head of organized crime at the SAPS says his relationship with Matlala was social and never traversed to police operational issues. Tembisa Hospital reports.
On the 6th of December, police raided the house of Vusimuzi Cat Matlala. In the same month, there were at least 2 calls between Matlala and the head of organized crime at SAPS, Richard Shibiri. However, Shibiri testified at the Matlala Commission that the raids were never brought up during their calls. Evidence leaders say this is hard to believe, as Matlala had loaned Shibiri 70,000 rand and had previously approached him during his trouble with entertainment blogger Musa Kaula.
And when I spoken to Mr. Matlala, we never spoke. He never told me of any operation happened to him. I don't know for what reason. So that is my answer. I don't know for what reason, but he didn't tell me.
Co-Commissioner Sibaloi says Shibiri's explanation is unbelievable. Tembisa Hospital, Eyewitness News.
Justice Sisi Gampepe, who chairs the Truth and Reconciliation Commission inquiry, has described efforts by former presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki to have her removed baseless and without merit. In an affidavit, Gampepe says the application is stillborn and has asked the court to order the two to pay the costs. Zuma and Mbeki have accused her of bias, citing roles she allegedly played nearly 30 years ago. Last week, court papers revealed that President Cyril Ramaphosa, who appointed Gampepe, is not opposed to her removal. Dimakatso Leshoro reports.
Former President Thabo Mbeki's name has already surfaced during testimony before the Commission, with a witness alleging he attempted to suppress cases arising from the TRC process through an alleged pact with former security branch generals and their lawyers to not go ahead with prosecutions. Gampepe, who was part of the Constitutional Court bench that jailed Zuma for contempt of the State Capture Commission, says the two former heads of state are undermining the Commission's work through what she calls meaningless litigation. She says as former presidents, they should know better, adding that the inquiry serves the public interests. Gampepe also says the applications have caused significant delays to the Commission's work, which is expected to conclude hearings by May and submit its report to President Cyril Ramaphosa by July. Dimakatso Leshoro, Eyewitness News.
And 30 people have died in flooding caused by heavy rains in Ethiopia. The latest disaster follows a series of deadly landslides in the southern part of the country. Regional authorities have warned that further disasters could occur as seasonal rains continue. East Africa has been battered by heavy downpours in the recent days, and multiple studies have been conducted to track the increasing frequency of extreme wet and dry periods in the region in the last 20 years. Gold is trading at $5,188.19 an ounce. The rand is at 16.38 to the dollar, 21.97 to the pound, 18.99 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $89.98 a barrel.
In Germiston, there's bumper traffic on the N3 southbound between the Elands Interchange and Rand Airport Interchange. This is due to an earlier accident. As a result, traffic also heavily backed up on the N12 westbound. This is between the Elands Interchange and the R59 Reading Interchange.
In your sport, Mamelodi Sundowns defeat Orbit College to reclaim top spot in the Betway Premiership. Igor Tudor under pressure as Tottenham Hotspur lose fourth consecutive game. And the ICC reject bias claims over post-World Cup travel delays.
A partly cloudy Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow with isolated showers expected. Johannesburg drops to overnight lows of 12 degrees, peaking at 20. Pretoria 14 and 23, and Vereeniging 11 and 20 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: dozens of SANDF Army men are currently moving in armoured vehicles in the Westbury community, searching properties for contraband and illegal firearms.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
702.
Drive home with John Perlman.
John Perlman, 3 to 6 p.m.
On 92.7 and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
702 Drive. It's 10 minutes past 4 with me, John Perlman, and the team. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you with us. Coming up in the next hour or so, many people have been complaining about a terrible smell that has hovered over the city of Johannesburg, more in some parts than anywhere else. We're going to get better insight into what's going on there. There are, by the way, people who are communicating from further east in Mpumalanga saying, excuse me, we have this all the time. It only makes news when it reaches Joburg. And indeed, Glenn, still closer to Joburg, perhaps than, for example, Imalahleni or one of those towns, makes this point. We live in Alberton, near the Alroda industrial area. We've been getting the foul chemical smell. At night, we complain to our councillors, but no action. I believe our environment monitoring does not exist and air quality meters don't work. The worrying thing, of course, Glenn, is that those air quality monitors may well work, and there may be people who are paying attention to what those monitors tell us. The question is anyone going to act? It's a massive problem. It's decades old. Professor Bruce Malado joins us from Wits University shortly. He's an expert on air quality monitoring. And then we're going to focus our attention on the Constitutional Court. The economic freedom fighters today marched on the court calling for the release of the Palapala farm judgment. This is an issue that they have been campaigning around for quite a while now, and they are focusing on Parliament's actions in regard to a report that they had initially been presented with, saying that the President may have violated the Constitution with his Palapala conduct. Parliament pushed that aside. Now it's made it all the way to the Concourt. What is behind the delay in the judgment, though? It has been a long time. Begazeli Benjamin joins us from the organization Judges Matter. As I say, the EFF have campaigned around this for a while, and they certainly made that point when some people said this is just an election ploy. They said, no, we've been on this for many months indeed. Begazeli Benjamin with us at about 20 minutes past 4. It's 12 minutes past 4. Some of you reacting to the Fly Safair increase around fuel. They're calling it a temporary fuel surcharge. A few of you have seen interesting things on the side of the road. Let's hear.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Good afternoon, John. Les here. I'm listening to your chat with Fly Safair about their fuel surcharges from midnight tonight. I appreciate the fact that aviation fuel has gone up by 70%, but has that aviation fuel already reached South Africa? I understand that there'd be a surcharge once the actual batch of aviation fuel arrives in South Africa, but are they not taking advantage a little bit too early and maybe profiteering? I doubt whether the increased fuel prices.
Just joined in Zweli here. On the road to N12 to Potchefstroom, from Potchefstroom close to Soweto, the guys are selling puppies. I mean, it was just a shock. I mean, I was just like, where these guys get these puppies? They're holding them with hands and they're raising them up that you should come and buy. And every time when I go to my hometown in Ikageng, I pass the guys. It's strange. I mean, what people sell on the streets. Thanks.
Thanks for that. We did mention earlier that there were tortoises being sold near Sun City. Melanie says, John, phone Brendan from Owl Rescue. It's illegal to sell tortoises. He will go and get them. The difficulty for us, Melanie, is, we can try and find out from the listener if he knows exactly where on the very long road to Sun City these tortoises are being sold, but we ourselves don't exactly know where they are. Let's see what we can find out. It's 14 minutes past 4.
EWN Traffic.
So Germiston got jammed fairly early today. I believe the delay is still persisting. Here's Karabo Charlie with the details.
Yeah, Germiston heading towards the Katlowing area. There's still bumper traffic on the N3 southbound between the Ilands interchange and Rand Airport interchange. This is due to an earlier accident. As a result, motorists trying to avoid that route. Now there's slow-moving traffic on the N12 westbound heading into Alberton. This is between the Ilands interchange and the R59 Reading interchange. In Brakpan, also traffic pressure. This is on the N17 eastbound approaching Carnival City due to ongoing roadworks. Driving through the Joburg CBD, traffic heavily backed up on the M1 southbound from Killarney Banks to the Crown interchange. Bryanston also expects some delays on Winnie Mandela Drive between Main Road and the N1. And in Irene, traffic remains sluggish on Nalmepius Drive approaching Main Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. Stay with 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
4:15 on 702 Drive. A number of people to this radio station on social media and elsewhere have been complaining about a terrible smell in the air over Johannesburg. What's going on? Is this something that has been going on for a while and has simply made its way to Joburg because of prevailing winds? Let's get some answers and welcome to the show Professor Bruce Milado. He's at Wits University. He's also the Executive Director of the South African Consortium of Air Quality Monitoring. Prof, welcome and thanks very much for your time. What is this all about? Is it something new? Is it a manifestation of something that's been going on for a long time? Good afternoon to you.
Thanks for having me. So for me to answer that question, I have to backtrack a little bit here.
Yes.
So our consortium works with government, NGOs, and foreign organizations from Canada, UK, France, and all that. We have developed a cost-effective technology to be able to deploy sensors in large numbers and attach them to the existing network of the government of South Africa, the DFFE and SACS. Because the problem that air quality monitoring has is a problem of costing. That's why it's not monitored on a regular basis. So right now we've successfully completed a pilot in 24 and 25. We're now basically scaling to deploy 500 sensors in the province of Gauteng, basically turning the province of Gauteng into probably one of the densest networks of air quality monitoring in the world. So what we are learning thus far, currently if you go to our website and the dashboard, what we're learning thus far is that indeed we are in the middle of a bunch of spikes being detected in the city. This has happened in the past. Obviously, there's many different sources of poor air quality and particulate matter. But what is important to bear in mind is that air quality is not bad all the time. It's not consistently bad. What happens, even in industrial areas, you have spikes. It's like, the COVID waves, very similar shape, okay? So these are basically clouds of pollutants that move from one place to the other, following the geometry of the cities or the geometry or the location where the dust is, and is pushed by the wind. So basically what you need, yes, go ahead.
So I just want to ask you, people may not notice this, although they may experience respiratory discomfort, which would say to them, well, the air is particularly filthy today. But if this comes with a very bad smell, I think in many people's minds they're saying, well, it's getting worse, whereas maybe this is just different. What is the relationship between poor air quality and a bad smell in the air?
Okay, that depends on the type of chemicals that have been released to the atmosphere.
Right.
Okay, and different chemicals basically will react with our senses differently. What the monitoring systems do is pick up an excess of pollutants in the air. It doesn't tell you in real time what exactly what kind of pollutant you have in the air, but it really gives you an alert that there's something in the air that is of abnormal density. So what we are developing and releasing very soon is an app where everyone in Gauteng will be able to carry and say, well, you are now currently in a cloud, or you are currently in a hot spot, wear a mask. So at least people are aware that there is a cloud right there where you stand. And that information will be fairly accurate. Of course, what we cannot do is to stop the economy because there's poor air quality. It's a very complex problem. But what we can do is severely mitigate the effects of poor air quality by issuing alerts and taking them seriously.
And just finally, it has been said on a number of platforms that, it makes news when these problems manifest in Johannesburg, but in actual fact, the people who've really suffered are somewhere on a line. I'm not sure where you would start it, maybe from Delmas going east until you probably hit a town like Machadodorp or Belfast. I mean, is that generally where the major source of air pollution problems come from? The coal-fired plants and other outputs in the near west side of Mpumalanga?
There's quite a number of sources of pollution. The stations are the burning stations are one, traffic is another, burning is yet another, and so on and so forth. So it is a complex problem that requires monitoring. So I can't obviously comment on the fact of, whether if something happens in Johannesburg, it matters, and if it happens this way, it doesn't.
Yes.
I have to look at it from the scientific standpoint, is that we really need to monitor on the ground. Now, the good news is that now we understand the technologies that are cost effective, we understand their performance, we understand how to calibrate them, how to correct for drifts, and how to make predictions with it in a cost effective way. That's the essence of the innovation that is being rolled out in order to really assess where those hotspots are located.
Thank you very much.
Whether they're in Johannesburg or anywhere else.
Thank you very much, Professor Bruce Malado, Professor at Wits University, Executive Director of the South African Consortium of Air Quality Monitoring. 22 minutes past 4.
Drive home with John Perlman
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Traffic. Hi, John. So, in response to the caller that left the voice note about the puppies being sold on the N12, I belong to an N12 WhatsApp group because there's been unrest, and sometimes they alert motorists that they're throwing rocks on the highway and stuff. And it's been a common thing on the group where the guys, or where the members of the group have posted that these guys are selling puppies. And previously, I think it was last year, I remember, they said that please don't stop and try and buy one of these puppies, because even though there's one guy holding a puppy up for sale, there are two guys not far from where he is, and the minute you stop, they get up, they run out of the field, and they try and rob you. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for that advice. We were talking earlier about interesting and unusual things you see being sold on the side of the road, but a note of caution there that this could be some kind of trap that lures you out of your vehicle onto the side of the road. You think you're going to check out the possibility of buying a cute puppy, and in fact, you find yourself in a situation of real trouble. So bear that in mind. 23 minutes past 4.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
So let's focus on this now. The EFF were at the Constitutional Court today, not for the first time, making public their concern that a Constitutional Court judgment, which looked at whether Parliament was incorrect in dismissing a report on President Cyril Ramaphosa and Phala, has been held up, and it's been held up in their view for too long. They suggest that this is suspicious. Let's find out then the perspective of my next guest. Mbegazeli Benjamin is with the organization Judges Matter. Mr. Benjamin, welcome, and thanks very much for your time. Is it hard to explain why this judgment hasn't come out sooner? Because the EFF certainly thinks this doesn't make sense.
Good afternoon, John, and good afternoon to the listeners. It is, the EFF is right to be concerned and to actually march to the Constitutional Court to demand the judgment come out, because it has taken a long time. And in fact, today is day 470 since the case was heard. But there is a context, of course, and we have to look at the performance of the Constitutional Court. My colleagues at UCT, at the University of Cape Town, did research on the performance of the Constitutional Court, and they found two very important numbers. Number one, the Constitutional Court, the workload of the court between 2010 and 2024 has almost tripled. On average, the court used to receive about 118 new cases in 2010. By 2024, it was receiving over 315 new cases. So it's much more than what they used to receive. And the number of days that the court took from the hearing day until judgment day has also doubled. So in 2010, it was on average 104 days. By 2024, it was 214 days. So more than double the number of days that the court used to take on average. And so the Phala Phala case falls into that context, that the Constitutional Court has a lot of work. The judges have remained the same. And in fact, currently, we are on the 5th month that President Ramaphosa has not appointed 2 new judges for the Constitutional Court. So we are not entirely surprised that the Phala Phala case had taken so long.
But you talk about context, and let me throw this into the context mix then, Mr. Benjamin. I mean, whenever people raise questions about the integrity of the judiciary. The judiciary is very robust in its own defense. Given that as context, and many people would get behind them when they assert that, surely it's in the court's interest to recognize that a matter that involves the president of the country is going to get this kind of scrutiny firstly, but may become fuel on a sometimes very, very, very close to burning fire. That they either should have communicated clearly on this matter, or they should have prioritized it and said, look, we've got many things, but let's get this one done because it is putting us in an uncomfortable conversation space, which we have always had to fight our corner in.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think 470 days is a bit extreme for the court to take in terms of its decision making. But often, John, these kinds of big political cases are what they call the hard cases that make bad law. Yes. Because the issue is so contentious is that you would find that there would be dissenting decisions. The judges might see, one group of judges might see things in one way, another will see it in another way because of the high profile nature of the case. I mean, the question that is before the court now is whether Parliament was correct to exercise its political decision to not proceed with an impeachment inquiry against the president. And so that is a novel constitutional question. We've never had it before. And so you would imagine that the court would take a long time to develop the judgment, but also they must develop it in a way that they provide legal principles that will guide future cases. So that may be why it has taken so long. But again, I think it's important to emphasize that 470 days is unacceptable for a court, especially the Constitutional Court.
Thanks very much. Mbegazeli Benjamin joining us from Judges Matter. And the EFF is certainly keeping the spotlight on this matter. I mean, this is well over the number that Mr. Benjamin gave us. The average time of judgments has moved into the low 200s. This is 4 times that, and even more than 4 times. And I would have thought if you, as they go about their work, they must surely pay some attention to the winds of political contentiousness in the society, and that shouldn't influence their judgment, but maybe it should affect their sense of priorities. That's certainly my view. What's yours? 072 702 1702, 28 minutes past 4.
EWN Business.
This EWN Business is brought to you by Volvo. Experience the best of both worlds with plug-in hybrids. Electric when you want it and fuel when you need it. Stephen Curtis, good afternoon.
John, good afternoon. All about oil prices, I'm afraid. So the International Energy Agency said reports that it would have a record release of oil reserves. That would put a lot more oil on the market and bring prices down. But almost immediately, international traders telling Bloomberg, look, what you can get from there and the length of time it takes is a fraction of the amount of oil that normally goes through the Straits of Hormuz, and therefore it just cannot continue. Also, Iran saying that that instead of confining themselves to counter strikes, they're just going to strike all the time. And so we see oil prices still hovering around $90 a barrel, and that's having the predictable impact on markets. So the JSE All Share down 2.77% on the day, 116,288. Financials are down 1.79. Industrials down nearly 1.5. Resources bearing the brunt on. They're down over 5% on the day. So we see it across gold companies and across platinum as well. Harmony Gold down nearly 13%. Now, they actually released 6-month update today. Their revenue is up 20%. Headline earnings per share are up by 13%. They did produce 9% less gold. They had some operational problems there. Underground grades also declined. The market really not liking that. We see Goldfields down 7%. Sibanye is down. Sibanye and Anglo Gold both down by over 6%. Kumba iron ore down 5.69%, and then the platinum miners, Valterra down 5.5%, Northam down nearly 4.5%. On the other side of things, Karoo, lots of penduluming with them. They're up 5%. Alpha Min up 4.18%. Outsurance, they had results out there up 3.81%. And then Sasol, one of the big movers of the day, one of the big winners of the day, particularly when you consider what's happening with oil prices. They're up 3.27%, and Attack up 1%. They had their results out yesterday. Rainbow Chicken saying they had an extraordinary jump in headline earnings. They're up 110%. John, we're eating more chicken, and La Nina led to cheaper maize, which is what chicken eat. So their inputs were lower. And Growth Point Properties saying also that they believe the office markets in Gauteng and the Western Cape are recovering. In the US, consumer price inflation coming out showing that prices did move up by more in February before really the Iran war started. The Dow Jones is now down 0.27. The Nasdaq is up 0.77. The S&P 500 up 0.42 on the day. The gold price lower, $5,185.83. Platinum, $2,204.80. Brent crude, John, the variable that matters at the moment, $89.64. And then the rand to the dollar, 16.35. So weaker. To the euro, 18.96. To the British pound, 21.96. Stephen Grutus, EWN Business.
Remember when you had to hurry up and wait, and cars could only run on fossil fuels? Well, hurry up and catch up. You don't need diesel power, you just need a second electric motor. With Volvo plug-in hybrids, you can drive electric in the city, switch to fuel for the long haul, or combine both when you want it all. So what are you waiting for? You're late for your test drive. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
Right, the latest eyewitness news, please. Here's Mbali Dlamini. Good afternoon to you.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. Dozens of SANDF soldiers are moving in armoured vehicles in Westbury, searching properties for contraband and illegal firearms. This is part of efforts to restore law and order in some of Gauteng's most crime-ridden areas. In a State of the Nation address this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa committed to supporting police by bolstering boots on the ground with the SANDF as they continue to fight crime. Mongezi Koko reports from Westbury.
The SANDF started its visibility patrols earlier in El Dorado before moving through River Lee. The operation is now focused here in Westbury, with teams expected to move into Safai Town later. Soldiers working alongside SAPS members have been searching homes and identified properties as part of a broader effort to clamp down on gang activity and illegal weapons. Residents in Westbury have for years complained about persistent gang-related violence and frequent shootings in the area. One father told EWN he fetched his daughter from school early today out of fear for her safety. While some community members have welcomed the military presence, many say they want to see a longer-term security plan to help restore safety in the area. Mongezi Koko, Eyewitness News, Westbury.
The Electoral Commission is encouraging young people to ensure they get their names on the voters' roll. The call has been made at a voter education campaign at the Durban University of Technology today. It comes as the IEC prepares for the upcoming local government elections. In 2024, the Commission reported that the country's youth made up only 42% of the voters' roll. Provincial Electoral Officer for the IEC, Ntombifuthi Masinga.
The students themselves, it's very important that we have you today. You have a bigger responsibility than of encouraging your peers to participate in the processes.
Masinga has encouraged the youth to show interest in leadership roles, even at government level.
We are not looking at young people as voters only. We are looking at young people as leaders. Because we are done.
Extortion has been highlighted as the possible motive for a mass shooting in Khayelitsha's Harare community. 4 people were killed in the attack last night. 3 of those people died on the scene, while 1 of the 2 taken to hospital has now also died. Camry Clark reports.
Police have launched a manhunt after gunmen opened fire at what's suspected to be an illegal outlet. Police spokesperson Andre Trout.
Several patrons were gathered in the yard watching a soccer match when they opened fire on the group.
In another mass shooting last night, 3 people were killed and a child was wounded in Mitchell's Plain. Camry Clark, Eyewitness News.
And the G7 group of nations says it is in support of the implementation and proactive measures to address oil supply issues. Energy ministers from the group held a virtual meeting with the International Energy Agency yesterday to discuss the impact of the Middle East war on energy markets and supply. The Paris-based IEA was created to coordinate responses to major supply disruptions after the 1973 oil crisis. In order to ensure energy security, the IEA imposes on its members an obligation to hold emergency oil stocks equivalent to at least 90 days of net oil imports. A partly cloudy Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with isolated showers expected. Lows of between 11 and 14 degrees and highs of between 20 and 23.
Germiston, you can now expect more than a 30-minute delay heading towards Katlong. That's the N3 southbound from the Geldenhuys interchange to Rand Airport interchange due to an earlier accident. As a result, there's also slow-moving traffic heading towards Alberton. That's the N12 westbound between the Elands interchange and the R59 Reading interchange. And in Bryanston, traffic heavily backed up on Grosvenor Road between Bryanston Drive and Leslie.
The top story in EWN, dozens of SANDF soldiers are moving in armoured vehicles in Westbury, searching properties for contraband as well as illegal firearms.
Bongani Bingwa, 702 Breakfast.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9.
This is Kabila from Pretoria. About illiteracy and children reading for meaning. In my practice as an optometrist, during an eye test for children, I usually prefer not to use alphabets because of you think the child can't see, only to find that they are in grade 2, but they can't still identify alphabets. Grade 2 and sometimes even grade 3, they can identify alphabets.
Isn't that absolutely frightening? Are you telling me there are children walking around with spectacles who possibly don't need them, but got them because they didn't know how to read, and everybody thought they couldn't see? They can see it perfectly.
You just don't know.
They just can't read it. That is extraordinary.
Bongani Bingwa, 6 to 9.
On 702.
With Outsurance, saving on your car insurance feels like being on the opposite side of the traffic jam. 63-year-old Almero saves a mind-blowing 417 Rand on his 2021 Ford Ranger. Get a quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's and information online.
Need a seat? Try 7 or 5. It's your call. Want a sunroof? Make it a panoramic. Gotta have power? How does award-winning 138 kilowatt sound? The Changan CS75 Pro is big enough for the kids, smart enough for your playlist, and stylish enough for your Friday night too. Why settle when you can have it all without compromise? The Changan CS75 Pro. Drive tomorrow's SUV today. Visit changanmotors.co.za for more.
Changan, driven to evolve.
Looking to upgrade your office furniture this year? Desk & Chair, the direct office furniture manufacturer, has a deal you don't want to miss. Get 5% cash back towards your existing office furniture with all purchases over 350,000 Rand. Contact Desk & Chair now for more info. Visit our newly renovated showroom in Midrand or shop online at deskandchair.co.za. Desk and Chair. Think, feel, work better. T's and C's apply.
We're on the ground and in the air with Thulani Sijo, founder of Take a Pic Drones. What's the flight plan for your connectivity?
The need for stable network connectivity is an absolute must in my field.
And with Telkom Business Fiber and Flexon, Thulani uploads high-res tower inspections and navigates seamlessly on the go. Get Stream Connect Fiber from 399 Rand per month and Flexon 4 Pro from 219 Rand per month. Call 10213 or click telkom.co.za. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Afternoon, John. In 702. Yeah, I forgot. Just on your way to Lenasia on the Golden Highway, just when you cross the Klipdorfier Road. Yeah, there are guys there who sell fish. I think those are the fish with the moustaches. I think the bubble fish. Yeah, they catch them there by the Klipdorfier and they stand on the side of the road and they sell the fish. I don't know. Sometimes I see cars stopping and buying. Well, I don't know, John. People out there, people are trying to make a living, from Kagiso.
Yeah, thanks for that call. So I think the fish I know that have those kind of whiskers, barbels. I didn't know that. I've never eaten barbel. I'd heard that you've really got to wash them really carefully because they're bottom feeders of some kind. They're the flesh is very sandy. But if you've eaten barbel, barbel, by the way, they're the same as catfish, which are very popular in the southern USA. Fishermen and women, call me on that. Let's shed some light on something I ought to know about more. It's 18 minutes to 5 o'clock.
EWN Sport.
Tola Kelly Mganga with the latest news from the world of sports. Yeah, really nice competitive Betway Premiership race and some great games in the Champions League as well. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, John. And Munapula Seleng played his first full game for Mamelodi Sundowns last night as they beat his former club Orbit College in the Betway Premiership. Miguel Cardoso admitted after the clash that he didn't plan to field him for the full 90 minutes as the defending champion secured a 2-0 win that saw them move 3 points clear at the top of the standings.
I was a little bit worried because it was not the plan to keep him for 90 minutes on the pitch. But Modao asked for a substitution. He was feeling a little bit tired and we want obviously several players to be fresh. Seleng finished the match. Also, it was a player that doesn't bring too much matches, just started playing. So we know that he doesn't accumulate fatigue. But we have to focus on his recovery. I avoid him. I was shouting to him not to make too long runs on sprints because those are the ones that can bring muscular injuries.
4 games are scheduled in the UEFA Champions League. The first leg of round of 16 action continues. Arsenal are away to Bayer Leverkusen in a game that will see Kai Havertz return to his former club.
Well, I hope so. I think at the moment we're at the stage where we basically look game by game. And for us, honestly, the most important game is tomorrow. And I know myself how tough Leverkusen is to beat, especially here at home. All we think about is tomorrow to win that game and then go home and, face them on the second leg next week. So I think that's all we're thinking.
Liam Rossigna returns to France tonight as Chelsea face off with defending champions PSG, and he's outlined his expectations for the tie.
What I will say in terms of the quality of the team, in terms of the quality of the opposition manager, are world class. They're world class, and it would be crazy to not expect anything else. I expect a very difficult challenge, tactically, physically, technically, because they have some world class players. They have a world class manager. We do too. We have world class players. I think it's going to be a great game for the neutral.
FIFA President Gianni Infantino has met with Donald Trump, who's assured him that the United States welcomes Iran's participation at the 2026 World Cup. Iran was the only nation missing from a planning summit that was held last week, while the country's sports minister Ahmad Donyamali said they couldn't participate in the tournament after the United States had killed its supreme leader. Iran have qualified for a 4th consecutive World Cup and are drawn to play Belgium, Egypt and New Zealand during the Global Showpiece event. And the Springbok Sevens have arrived in New York ahead of the final event of the HSBC 7 Series this weekend. South Africa and Fiji go into it tied at the top of the standings, while Ronald Brown said they'll look to return to ground zero after winning the Vancouver legs last time out.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to play for this weekend. I think personally, getting back to zero is very important to me because Neil always used to taught us that, getting back to zero is important because, you have the hard work starts. Because once you're on top, then you become a target. And then for us, that's exactly where we're at now. So it's important for us to, to stay focused this week, get back to zero, work hard still, work on the things that we got wrong because there's a lot of work-ons coming this week and obviously heading into the next week.
Tolagile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Okay, let's get ourselves out onto the roads now, find out where it's moving smoothly and where it's a little bit jammed. Karabo Charlie is your man.
Well, thanks, John. At this stage in Germiston, traveling towards Katlo, you can expect about a 30-minute delay on the N3 southbound. This is between the Heldenays interchange and Rand Airport interchange due to an earlier accident. It is as a result. There's also slow-moving traffic on the N12 westbound. That's heading towards Alberton between the Inlands interchange and the R59 Reading interchange. Brakpan, traffic pressure due to roadworks on the N17 eastbound from Osborne to Carnival City. While in the Joburg CBD, heading towards Boysons, expect about a 20-minute delay on the M1 southbound between Killarney Bends and the Crown interchange. Bryanston, traffic heavily backed up on Grosvenor Road between Bryanston Drive and Leslie. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. You're now listening to 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
Just a couple of things on what we were talking about things being sold on the side of the road. Seila says haliperimia, very lethal poison, sold openly in the streets of Johannesburg. I think some people call it two-step, but it's a conversation or a product that was very much part of the conversation when so many young people were dying in various places, allegedly because they'd eaten poison snacks or food that had come into contact with poison. Let me be very careful in my framing of that. That was something that was really in the news and appears not to be happening on the scale it was. I suspect we need to look into it, but if you've got any insights into why that is the case. And then somebody has spoken about tortoises sold on the way to Sun City. I said, well, can you tell us exactly where? Matilda says tortoises are sold at the Mokwasi 4-way stop. So that was raised in connection with someone saying this is actually legal and it should be put a stop to. 13 minutes to 5 on 702 Drive.
John is on X.
At John Perlman.
So it seems the biggest story today, and it's going on, we've got Mongezi Koko out in Westbury, might be moving with the SANDF as they make their way to the adjacent community of Riverlea. But the SANDF now in fulfillment of an undertaking given by President Cyril Ramaphosa last month at the State of the Nation address. There are now soldiers with their boots on the ground in various communities, and we're following that closely. I'm keen to know, though, from you, if there were soldiers in your community, and it could be a community where there has been a lot of trouble, does it make you feel safer? Does it make you feel that, okay, help is on its way? I'd be really keen to get a sense, maybe they're not in your community at the moment. I know the one time when soldiers were deployed, I didn't have direct experience of it, but back in July 2021, with the unrest, looting, and violence that cost so many lives, 5 years ago now, more than 5 years ago, I was just really assured when the army were brought into place. So that was a time when soldiers made me feel a lot safer. Tolakele, there are some people who say, oh my goodness, there's soldiers on the street. I wonder what's going on. It actually makes me feel nervous. But perhaps if I lived in a place like Westbury with all its profound troubles, I might feel actually encouraged and heartened. Instinctively, what comes to mind for you?
I remember also, was it 2020 or 2021, the looting when it happened? So
yeah.
I'm from Katlohong. We did also have unrest there, and there was some soldiers deployed. I don't know, for me, it made me feel uneasy.
Yes.
Because also when you live in an area like Katlehong where there is sporadic violence that comes as a result of whether people are protesting a lack of service delivery, also people are sometimes fighting in the streets because they get drunk and arguments happen among people. When it's read the wrong way by law enforcement, it just escalates to something it doesn't need to be. But also I understand the need for there to be rules and regulations to be followed. So I'm a bit 50-50 about it because you're like, yes, let me be a law-abiding citizen.
Yes.
But also everybody just has those moments of making mistakes or acting out of the ordinary as a result of whatever conflict that they're in. But if it's read incorrectly by someone else, it could lead to bigger issues.
What about you, Karabo Chale? I mean, soldiers in the street, would that make you feel better? Is that something you'd want to see?
I'll definitely feel intimidated and nervous because remembering the COVID times when they were deployed, some of the soldiers were a bit ruthless and unnecessary in their approach to civilians. So I don't know how, I would be very kind of afraid of them when I walk past them in the neighborhood. But yeah, I guess I'll also feel a bit safer because hopefully they'll be trying to protect us from the criminals. But yeah, I'm two minds about it.
Yeah, it is. And I wonder if there's more ambivalence out there. I'm looking at the headlines saying people in Westbury are pleased with what they're seeing, although we did have an earlier conversation with law and order activist Pastor Jefferson Alistair Johnson, and he definitely didn't feel that this was the right thing to be doing. But give us your thoughts and give us a call. By the way, that reference to the COVID time, some people's minds may go back to May 2020. Collins Causa, a man in Alexandra, who at the time it was alleged had been beaten to death by soldiers. 9 minutes to 5.
In the last 24 hours, this is what's happened in your world.
In response to recent attacks, Iran targeted key U.S. bases across the Middle East. This had a knock-on effect on the Strait of Hormuz, where ships carrying refined petroleum to South Africa face major disruptions, leaving the Republic facing possible fuel price shocks with potential spikes of between 5 and 8 rand per litre. However, the Department of Mineral Resources says there's no need to panic, citing contact with local oil companies and flat out saying there's no immediate risk.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent.
Stop and think. Will you survive the AI revolution or thrive? Regenesis students are thriving. 11 cutting-edge schools, 111 countries. World-class team of 1,111 with one mission, awakening your potential. Choose from law, business, technology, AI, health, economics, entrepreneurship, public management, skills academy, and digital Regenesis. Undergraduate, postgraduate, upskilling, customized corporate programs. The question isn't can you afford to enroll, it's can you afford not to? Enroll now, regenesis.net. Achieve your dreams.
We at Monument Dental are very happy with the premium we're paying. I wish I did it sooner.
Outsurance business insurance clients know that it pays to switch. And did you know you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium when you switch? For dentistries, general medical practices, and all other businesses, get a quote today and see why it pays to switch to Outsurance business insurance. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Are corporate strategy sessions, family commitments, and fitness pursuits draining you? Stay on top of your game with the world's #1 nutritional supplement drink, Ensure Gold. With HMB and triple protein, it provides 20 essential vitamins and minerals and is clinically proven to boost energy, build muscle, and support immunity. Why settle when you can go for gold? Get the daily strength you need from Ensure Gold. Available at all leading supermarkets and pharmacies. Ensure, the strength experts.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
702 Drive, it's 6 minutes now to 5. Well, many of us are talking about energy in general in ways that we really didn't expect to be doing. Load shedding pretty much behind us. Yes, of course, there's been instances where electricity has been cut and the supply, particularly in some of the metros, has not been as reliable as we like. But with energy on people's minds, there is a decision that has been made by Egoli Gas, and this reflected in a letter that's been shared with us letter sent to some Egoli Gas customers stating that the utility will be permanently disconnecting the gas pipeline in certain areas. So to find out what's going on, which these areas are, and to get a better understanding as to how this is actually connected to the soil in these areas, we welcome to 702 Drive Egoli Gas Sales Manager Ray Domingo. Mr. Domingo, welcome and thanks very much for your time. I've got a copy of the letter in front of me, and it says that, and I'll quote this sentence, "The soil in this region has proven highly corrosive, significantly impacting the structural integrity of our pipelines." What's been happening there? I mean, is this soil that has changed over time? Because I would assume when Egoli Gas first went there, this wouldn't have been a problem. Some explanation of that to kick us off, please. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, John. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, just to address that issue. That is one of the reasons. But I'd like the listeners and our customers also to bear in mind that our network has been in the ground for close to 100 years now. And predominantly when the pipelines were laid all those years back, it was laid in steel. And as you know, with corrosion, you've got water, you've got air, oxidizers, and you've got corrosion. Over that time period, those pipelines have come to a point where they're just at the end of their lives. Now, the soil condition is definitely a concern, and it is an issue. But there are other compounding factors as well. It's not the primary reason that we're also planning to terminate those areas.
Yes.
So you've got situations where we've got failing infrastructure when it comes to stormwater, which creates standing groundwater. And that, with the recent rains we've been having over the past 2 years, it's only exacerbating the problem. Now, in the area that we intend to terminate, you're looking at about 120 customers in total.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to replace all those pipelines, we're coming close to about 25 to 30 kilometers of pipeline. You can imagine that's a massive undertaking, and to dig up the entire area. Another fact is that we are a private company as well, so we don't have the luxury of state coffers to top us or subsidize us, which we'd welcome. If that was the case, it would aid us in preserving the network.
Yes.
But at this point, John, the cost to serve is running away from us much faster than we anticipated.
So
it is a commercial decision,
Yes.
partly, but there are other compounding factors as well, which, for example, safety. The area is compromised when it comes to safety. There's a lot of hijacked buildings in these areas, and it prevents us from doing, basic maintenance. And public safety is paramount to Egoli Gas. And if we can't guarantee public safety, it becomes an issue for us.
So people will have struck up arrangements with you on the basis of continuous service. Further than that, they would have invested in, maybe they were replacing a stove. They said, let's go for gas. There's Egoli Gas in the area, and they bought a gas hob. Now, you point out in the letter that people can, for example, get LNG, big, gas canisters and so on. But would it not be fair, given that people may have made investments based on a decent expectation of unbroken service from yourselves, that there would be some compensation that would allow them to make whatever conversions they have to make?
Granted, absolutely, but it all relies on our financial prowess. At this point, we're just not in a position to offer any assistance at this point. As you know, energy is a critical topic, and it's running away from the country in general on all fronts. So at this point, from Egoli Gas's side, we don't have the funds to offer any rebates or any assistance when it comes to converting equipment or providing an alternative. It's just not within our means.
But have you costed that?
Yes, we have. Absolutely.
What would it cost?
So we're looking in close to about 10 to 15 million rand.
15 million rand to compensate 120 houses. How does that work?
So yes, it's not just the replacement of the equipment. It's also the pipeline infrastructure within the home. So if you're converting to a different type of gas, you need to change the pipelines as well. It's not just the equipment. So you can imagine some stands are, you may have 50, 60 meters from the boundary to the driveway.
Yes.
And all of those pipelines have to be replaced. So it becomes a mammoth undertaking, and the cost is just not within our means at this point, John.
Ray Domingo, sales manager at Egoli Gas. If you're affected by this notice, you may want to get in touch. Give us your thoughts. 011 883 0702 and 072 702 1702. Coming up, the news at 5. After that, we're out in Westbury. We will get an update from our EWN colleague, Mongezi Koko, who I'm sure will have an update on the news bulletin, which is coming up right now.
This is EWN.
SANDF operation in Westbury, and Fly Sefe yet to determine actual price of its surcharge. Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. Police and the SANDF are expected to brief the media this afternoon following a series of raids in the south of Joburg. The soldiers and police have moved through several communities in armoured vehicles today, searching properties for contraband and illegal firearms. So far, 2 people have been arrested in today's operation. Mongezi Koko is on the ground and joins us live now. Mongezi, what is the latest?
Mbali, today's operation has already yielded some results with 2 arrests, including a young teenage boy who was found with drugs at his home. Efforts started earlier in Eldorado Park before teams moved through Westbury and are now wrapping up here in Sophia Town. The raids form part of a broader visibility operation involving SANDF soldiers and SAPS members targeting properties suspected of being linked to drugs, illegal firearms and gang activity. The deployment forms part of Operation Prosper, which has seen hundreds of soldiers sent into some of Johannesburg's most crime-hit areas in a bid to support police and restore law and order. Police have confirmed a media briefing for later today, where officials are expected to provide more details on today's operation. Mongezi Koko, Eyewitness News, reporting live in Sophia Town.
Fly Sefe has yet to determine the price of the temporary surcharges to be passed on to travellers booking tickets from tomorrow. The airliner announced this afternoon and was forced to make that move following a 70% spike in jet fuel costs. It says the price hikes are directly linked to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, which has seen a key oil shipping transit shut down. Kirby Gordon is Fly Sefe's chief marketing officer.
Surcharges will apply from tomorrow for bookings with departures up until the 12th of May. The exact amounts are currently being finalized by our analysts. They will be based on the current increases that we're experiencing and levied as a set amount by route, depending on the length of that route. We're also factoring in anything that we can do to reduce these surcharges in terms of tankering fuel so that we fill up where it's most cost efficient to do so.
In a change of tune, under intense cross-examination, suspended top cop Richard Shibiri has now admitted he knew about criminal allegations against Vusimuzi Matlala before accepting a 70,000 rand payment from him. He claims the money was a loan to fix his son's car, which he has since paid back to Matlala. Shibiri has been testifying before the Madlanga Commission on allegations that he was in Matlala's pocket. Tembisa Hospital has more.
Throughout his testimony, Richard Shibiri has maintained he only knew Vusimuzi Matlala as a businessman. Shibiri has also testified he would have never accepted the money if he knew Matlala was involved or suspected to be part of criminal networks. However, WhatsApp records show on the 17th of September 2024, Matlala texted Shibiri about allegations made against him by entertainment blogger Musa Kawula. A day later, Shibiri accepted 70,000 rand from Matlala.
Would you accept a loan from somebody who's accused of a crime?
Yes, yes.
And you said you wouldn't.
Yes.
But here you did.
Yes.
Despite that, Shibiri maintains he did nothing wrong. Tembisa Hospital, Eyewitness News.
Justice Sisi Gampepe, who chairs the Truth and Reconciliation Commission inquiry, has described efforts by former presidents Jacob Zuma as well as Thabo Mbeki to have her removed as baseless and without merit. In an affidavit, Gampepe says the application is stillborn and has asked the court to order the two to pay costs. Zuma and Mbeki have accused her of bias, citing roles that she played nearly 30 years ago. Last week, court papers revealed that President Cyril Ramaphosa, who appointed Gampepe, is not opposed to her removal. Dimakatso Leshoro reports.
Former President Thabo Mbeki's name has already surfaced during testimony before the Commission, with a witness alleging he attempted to suppress cases arising from the TRC process through an alleged pact with former security branch generals and their lawyers to not go ahead with prosecutions. Gampepe, who was part of the Constitutional Court bench that jailed Zuma for contempt of the State Capture Commission, says the two former heads of state are undermining the Commission's work through what she calls meaningless litigation. She says as former presidents, they should know better, adding that the inquiry serves the public interests. Gampepe also says the applications have caused significant delays to the Commission's work, which is expected to conclude hearings by May and submit its report to President Cyril Ramaphosa by July. Dimakatso Leshoro, Eyewitness News.
And the National Sea Rescue Institute has urged the public to practice water safety amid the heat wave in the Western Cape. The NSRI's Andrew Ingram says while extreme temperatures draw crowds to the beach, it also increases the risk of drowning. Bathers are advised to stay hydrated to prevent fatigue, dizziness and poor judgment. Ingram also appealed to parents to keep a close watch on their children.
Swim at beaches where lifeguards are on duty, and avoid alcohol before swimming or boating. In an emergency, dial 112 from your cell phone.
Gold is trading at $5,188.19 an ounce. The rand is at 16.38 to the dollar, 21.93 to the pound, 18.97 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $89.70 a barrel.
Germiston, you can still expect about a 30-minute delay N3 southbound between the Geldenes interchange and Rand Airport interchange. This is due to an earlier accident. Bryanston, also traffic heavily backed up on Grosvenor Road between Bryanston Drive and Leslie. Centurion, expect about a 20-minute delay N1 northbound from John Foster all the way to the R21 Flying Saucer interchange.
In your sport, Mamelodi Sundowns defeat Orbit College to reclaim top spot in the Betway Premiership. Igor Tudor under pressure as Tottenham Hotspur lose fourth consecutive game. And the ICC reject bias claims over post-World Cup travel delays.
A partly cloudy Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow with isolated showers expected. Johannesburg drops to overnight lows of 12 degrees, peaking at 20. Pretoria 14 and 23, and Vereeniging 11 and 20 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, police and the SANDF are expected to brief the media today following a series of raids in the south of Joburg.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
7:02.
Drive home with John Perlman.
John Perlman, 3 to 6 p.m.
On 92.7 and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
7:02 Drive. It's 8 minutes, in fact, past 5 o'clock. Welcome to the show. Good to have you with us. If you've just joined us, thanks for joining us earlier. If that is in fact what you did, coming up over the next hour, there's actually a lot going on. You may have heard a moment ago, Mongezi Koko is out in Westbury. We're going to talk to him shortly just to get a further update, but also a kind of a sense of what it's like being on the streets as the SANDF moves into that community that has really battled on the one hand, and principally I think in Westbury with gang violence, but also in communities nearby. I'm thinking Riverlea, Bosmont, problems with Zamas as well. And this is just the beginning of a much larger and longer initiative. Mongezi with us shortly on that. Important development in Gauteng, the Democratic Alliance. You may have heard Dr. Jack Bloom talking earlier to Mandy Wiener, but this is in regard to issues around the murder of whistleblower Babita Deokaran, and in particular the then Gauteng Health Department's Chief Financial Officer Lerato Maggio, whose name has come up repeatedly as the investigation into what happened to Babita Deokaran and why has unfolded. We'll hear from Professor Alex van den Heever, who's watched this very closely. He's at the Wits School of Governance. And then a response to an interview we had yesterday with Peter Morgan, who's involved with the association that represents fuel retailers. Mr. Morgan expressing significant concerns about what he feels is a lack of planning in regard to what is, it would seem, a looming fuel crisis in the country. And we were talking specifically about the availability of petrol, diesel and paraffin. A response from the Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources. That's coming from Robert Make, who's Director for the Fuel Pricing Mechanism at that department. He's with us at about 20 past 5.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072 702 1702.
Good afternoon, 702. Good afternoon, Dr. John. Just on the topic of bubble or catfish, I lived in the cradle of humankind for quite a while. And there's quite a lot of rivers and lakes there where there's quite a lot of bubble fish. They are actually quite a very nice fish if you know how to prepare it. That muddy taste, the best way to get it out is to actually soak the fish in milk. Maybe give it about 2 hours or so. And then from there, you just either decide whether you want to fry it. You could fry it as well, maybe in some batter. But a very nice, meaty, yes, a little bit sandy, but if you use the milk, it will definitely help you sort out your bubble recipe. Mulefe from Roadside.
Yeah, thanks. And by the way, if you've just joined, you're thinking, why on earth are we discussing recipes and procedures and techniques for cooking barbel? It comes out of a conversation we had earlier where we asked, what are the interesting things you've seen sold on the side of the road? Somebody said, I think on the Golden Highway heading towards Eldo's, there are people who are selling barbel that they've caught in one of the dams in Soweto. And then I said, barbel, can you really make a good meal out of it because they're very sandy? Now we know you can if you have milk and a fair amount of patience. 11 minutes past 5. Let's bring you the traffic.
EWN Traffic.
EWN Traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS the word out to 45142 now, and you could save on car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. Karabo Charlie, we keep coming back to Germiston because a lot of people simply can't get through the town.
Yeah, heading towards the Katlong Alberton area, you can expect about a 30-minute delay. This is N3 southbound from the Geldenhuys interchange all the way to Rand Airport interchange due to an earlier accident. Boksburg, traffic pressure due to roadworks. N17 eastbound between Osborne and Carnival City. Still in Ekurhuleni, Benoni, there's slow-moving traffic on Atlas Road. This is approaching the N12. Driving through the Joburg CBD, expect about a 20-minute delay. On the M1 southbound from Killarney Benz to the Crown interchange, Bryanston traffic heavily backed up on Grosvenor Road between Bryanston Drive and Leslie. Still in Bryanston, expect some delays on Winnie Mandela Drive between Main Road and the N1. Protea Klein Soweto, slow-moving traffic on the N12 westbound between the R554 Abu Bakr Drive and the R558 in Tshwane Centurion. You can expect more than a 20-minute delay on the N1 northbound from John Foster all the way to the R21 Flying Saucer interchange. And finally in Irene, traffic remains sluggish on Nelmapius Drive heading towards Main Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
You know that feeling when you have uninterrupted water supply? That's how good it feels to see the Outsurance pointsmen on your route. Everyone has a little less stress in traffic knowing the Outsurance pointsmen are on the roads. They've been easing traffic congestion so everyone gets where they need to be quickly and safely for the past 20 years. With Outsurance, you really always get something out in proud partnership with 702. Show them some love online using #PointsmenLove, licensed insurer and FSP.
Driving the conversation on 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Powered by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Well, let's focus our attention now on the southwest part of Johannesburg. This is where the first SANDF boots have hit the ground, starting in the community of Westbury. Let's get an update from our EWN colleague, Mongezi Koko, who's been following the men in brown and their camouflage vehicles. Mongezi, I suppose one of the things that I'm particularly keen to understand, what sense are you getting from residents? Their reaction either through conversations you might have had or just from the way the soldiers are being received. What are the people of Westbury saying?
A very good afternoon to you, Ndate John. Well, as you would imagine, in these crime-ridden areas, the reception is that of a welcoming one, where many residents are expressing how happy they are with the deployment of these SANDF soldiers, accompanied by SAPS members, claiming that, their calls for action by law enforcement have gone unanswered. So essentially just expressing how happy they are and how grateful they are, some even working in collaboration with the SANDF members who are on the ground. But it's important to note that they came with a plan. It's as though they have identified properties that are possibly linked to the trade of drugs, to criminal elements such as harboring illegal weapons and the like. So we're seeing a lot of action taking place. They started, of course, in El Dorado Park a bit earlier on in the day, unannounced. This is where the media then caught up with them. They then moved over to Riverlea, which also is in the south of Johannesburg, before heading to Westbury. And this is where a lot of the residents welcomed the presence of the SANDF members, citing their continuing pleas for assistance when it comes to crime. Right now, we are stationed in Sapphire Town with the possibility of the SANDF then moving ahead to Newlands, which is not too far from this place, in the hopes of still uncovering some of these criminal elements. We did also see numerous arrests in Datejon. At last count, EWN could confirm 2 arrests, but we are waiting to hear from some of the members how many more arrests have been effected since we saw what we saw earlier in the day. We do anticipate a briefing by the SAPS. Primarily speaking, will be SAPS spokesperson Atlenda Mate, to provide sort of an outline as to what today's events have yielded and to give us what to expect in the future. You will remember that in his State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa outlined that the activities and the Operation Prosper, the deployment of the SANDF members, would last until the 30th of April.
Right.
So this briefing is expected to sort of tell us what can we expect in the coming days, what can we look out for, without providing much details, as you'd imagine that they yield more results if the raids are done by surprise and without any prior communication. So heavy embargoes expected when it comes to more of these operations that the SANDF will be undertaking.
Thank you very much, Mongezi Koko, with that update. And I did ask the question a little bit earlier, when you see soldiers on the streets in our neighborhoods, how do you feel? And Kingsley says it would appear that citizens in some parts of the country are caught between a rock and a hard place. Trust and respect between people and the police has been badly eroded, while soldiers bring a level of fear, unease, and perceived unpredictability. And then there's the drug lords, Zamazamas, and dangerously armed cable thieves. How did we get here? Kingsley with that question from Germiston. 18 minutes past 5.
Drive home with John Perlman
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Well, there are some issues that simply do not go away, and they partly don't go away because people keep on digging. This is fundamentally true on the one hand in regard to the looting of Tembisa Hospital, and on the other, the fact that Babita Diokaran, whistleblower and employee in the Gauteng Department of Health, was murdered for trying to uncover what was going. A massive, massive looting of public money for a vital service, health, in a community that scarcely could afford to be robbed and ripped off in that way. The latest development is that the Democratic Alliance, in the person of member of the provincial legislature, Dr. Jack Bloom, who is the person that drives their agenda on health, has asked questions in regard to the settlement that was paid out to the Chief Financial Officer, Lerato Madio. She was the person to whom Babito Deokaran blew the whistle. She initially, as we understand it, froze 104 million rand in payments, but eventually allowed them to be paid. There was supposed to be a disciplinary inquiry into Madio's conduct, and it was initially reported by a departmental spokesperson in August 2024 that she had resigned. Now it's emerged through Jack Bloom's question that, quote, the parties concluded a settlement agreement, the material terms of which are subject to a confidentiality clause mutually agreed upon and signed by both parties. Bloom also points out in a statement that she issued that while Majo was suspended with pay for 2 years, as the department dragged out her disciplinary inquiry on 13 misconduct charges, she earned 3 million rand, and those charges were never pursued. So, what does this all tell us, and crucially, what can be done? Prof. Alex van den Heever has followed the issues around Gauteng Health and the Tembisa Hospital scandal, call it a catastrophe perhaps, as well. He's followed those closely. He joins us from the Wits School of Governance. Prof, I guess it's important that all this gets uncovered for the record. But realistically, from what you know about government procedures, has this horse bolted and disappeared over the hill? Or is there actually something that could be done? Because I'm certain many of our listeners are saying to themselves, well, you know, it would be nice if something could be done about it, but somehow they may be skeptical that it can.
Well, there's actually quite a bit that can be done because in effect reaching this agreement is very likely to have been unlawful and to involve irregular expenditure, which actually places an obligation on the current acting head of department, who is the accounting officer, to resolve. And you essentially can't reach an agreement like this if it is unlawful. So this is a person who is undergoing a disciplinary process in which they would very likely have been essentially fired. And therefore there would be no expenses for the department and potentially other recoveries from this individual because they were in contravention of the Public Finance Management Act potentially, and they could face charges in that respect. The department should also have referred the matter based on the disciplinary process for further investigation as well. So all of that stuff should be done and can still be done, and the current accounting officer is still obligated to go through all of that. Just because it was done by a previous accounting officer doesn't actually let them off the hook. But this is absolutely scandalous that it could happen in the first place.
It does fly in the face of all the assurances that were given. Firstly, when the harsh reality of the murder of Babita Deokaran, her assassination, began to become part of a wider conversation about the horrendous abuses at the Tembisa Hospital. The assurance were given over and over, and yet over many years, as I understand it, never mind the charges being pursued, it took ages for them to even be prepared. That would suggest virtually no seriousness in the Gauteng government to actually get to the bottom of this.
Well, it could suggest that, in fact, there was a bit of a fear of going through with the processes.
Yes.
Because obviously these are individuals who are implicated very much and have knowledge of exactly what transpired. So there's every chance that there's that the deal that is done is in order to keep them quiet. That is one reading of this. But that would actually be very consistent with the overall pattern of what we've seen around the Tembisa Hospital story. There was so much money made with so many people paying bribes all over the place. And to close this down, you do it from the top. And the CFO was central to what happened. So so clearly the CFO has to be pursued fully. But the deal that was done and what is sitting in that confidential agreement and how much money was paid to this individual has to be disclosed, because it's absolutely insane that a government department short of funds would pay somebody out when they could otherwise fire them. It doesn't make sense, and they kept them on for 3 million rand in dragging out a disciplinary process that probably could have taken 2 months.
Professor Alex van den Heever, Wits School of Governance. Like I said, there are some stories that simply will not go away. 23 minutes past 5.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
Now, let's pick up on a story that we dealt with yesterday. This is around the question of whether South Africa could find itself short of fuel. We know the pricing implications of what's going on in and around the country of Iran and its war with the United States and Israel. But there are also concerns that we might find ourselves with less petrol, diesel and paraffin than we actually need. We focused on this yesterday with Peter Morgan, CEO of the Liquid Fuels Wholesalers Association. But government has been responding to these concerns, and for that conversation, we're joined now by Robert Marke, who's Director for Fuel Pricing Mechanisms at the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources. Mr. Marke, welcome and thanks for giving us your time. Just to set the scene for our conversation, let's just hear briefly an excerpt of what Peter Morgan had to say yesterday, and then we'll pick up the conversation with you.
Our concerns is that, we don't appear to be in crisis mode. When I talk about the discussions that we aren't having with the department at the moment, I believe we should be having. As far as we're concerned, we should have a contingency plan. We should have been talking about this 3 weeks ago when the possibility came about. Because we can talk about crude oil and where our reserves are. But, we have refineries at the moment that are not working, that we're importing majority of our fuel as finished product. So, as an example of what can go wrong is that if you've got crude oil in Saldanha at the moment that has a pipeline into the Cape Town refinery, it's really not strategic stock because that refinery is actually on annual shutdown this month.
Yeah. Okay, so that was just part of what we heard yesterday from Peter Morgan. Let's, Mr. Marke, pick up on some of the issues. Do we have a very clear, I call it a dashboard, that indicates to you as the department how much fuel of various kinds we have, how much fuel is on its way, and how much we're going to need? In other words, can you look at this dashboard and say we're fine for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, good afternoon, John, and to the listeners. Let me first also say that one of the responsibilities of the department is to ensure that the security of fuel supply in the country. So what we do is we have a logistic planning team meeting that meets on Wednesday every week. We even had a meeting today, and Peter Morgan was part of that meeting. So in that meeting, that's where we develop a contingency plan, because in that meeting, we have all the oil companies are represented there. Other suppliers of LP gas and so on are also there. NERSA is part of that meeting. The Industry Association, both PIASA and LFWA are part of the meeting, and Transnet Pipeline are part of that meeting.
Right.
So together as industry, we have developed sort of a contingency plan, where at the moment I can tell you, Peter, that we are expecting around about 6 vessels, 6 shipments that are coming from different parts of the world, India, West Africa, that are bringing products of different sorts to the country. So I will say, as you know, our country has been on import mode since the closure of some of our oil refineries.
Right.
So already there were placement of orders for vessels to bring product in the country. The only disruption is some of those vessels that were coming from country of origin were in the Middle East. And those oil companies have already decided on alternative sources like West Africa and so on. So I will say, as far as we are concerned, and the meeting that we had today, there's no need to panic as far as fuel supply is concerned at the moment.
So, Mr. Marke, you mentioned the number 6 shipments. I don't know what that means, but this might help us with perspective. If you were to take a month in South Africa, in a normal month, how many shipments do we typically get? Because that will give context to the number 6.
Look, let me say it this way now. Firstly, let's start with the refineries that are operating now. We know that Astron is on a planned shutdown. It's coming back next month. So already they've secured a finished product that is coming in the country during this period of shutdown. But they've also on the plan showed us that they've got enough crude oil when the refinery comes back next month in April. So if you have Astron, you have Natref, and you have Sasol Secunda combined, they give us a production of almost 360 million barrels per day. So locally we can produce that. And then we have these oil companies that they bring shipment. It's not a fixed number per month. So it will depend on the supply situation during that period. But as I'm talking to you now, the shipment that I'm referring to, these are confirmed by the oil companies, and they are en route already. They've left the different countries of origin, and they are heading towards South Africa. These are the 6 that I'm talking to you about.
Robert Marke, thank you, Director for Fuel Pricing Mechanism at the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources. Still a lot of questions, I think, to be asked, and obviously this is going to unfold over time. I think it's worrying, personally. I'm glad to hear, because one of the points Peter Morgan made yesterday was he felt there was insufficient gathering of all role players to consult and plan. Robert Marke is suggesting that, in fact, there is such a forum and they met today. We're going to watch it closely. I think we have to. 29 minutes past 5.
EWN Business.
Stephen Curtis, good afternoon to you again.
Afternoon, John. Yeah, and as you've been talking, of course, as you know, Fly Safair, Airlink putting their prices up because of what's happening with avgas prices. The International Energy Agency saying today they will put as much oil as they sort of can. They'll have the biggest ever release, actually, of oil on the markets. This is coordinated from the reserves of many countries, but other analysts saying that's not going to be nearly enough to make up for what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. And then what I suppose you would call as war talk during a war from one of the sides, but the Iranians' military leadership saying in the last sort of 2 hours or so that the world should prepare for $200 a barrel oil. John, obviously this is about putting pressure in the same way that Trump says things about Iran. So Iran is saying things to sort of the West or the US, but this is really where we are. The Brent crude oil at the moment hovering back above $90 a barrel. The JSE All Share suffering as a result, down 1.85, 117,399 points. Financials down 0.78, industrials down 1.09, and resources down 3.75%. It was worse a couple of hours ago, but just before the close, they strengthened a little bit. Harmony down over 11.5%, and they're a gold miner. They had much higher earnings because of higher gold prices. Their production was down 9%. Goldfields down 5.5%, Sibanye down 4.86%, and platinum miners suffering too. Valterra down 4.45%. Sasol, of course, the big winner. They're up 4.63%, although fuel prices at this level, you'd think they might do a little better. Outsurance up 2, update from them 4.87, and then Grindrod up 2.2, and Attack, the property company, up 1%. Rainbow Chicken having a strong day, lower feed prices, and so lower input prices, and strong demand for chicken helping them. We'll speak to their CEO on the Money Show tonight. Also tonight, John, the CEO at Growth Point Properties, they say that their distributable income was up 2.1% in the 6 months to the end of December. In the US, markets are turning slightly despite an inflation report showing that prices started to go up a bit in February before this current conflict started. The Dow Jones, though, is down 0.5%. The Nasdaq is up 0.39. The S&P 500 is up 0.18. The gold price now, $5,179.67. Platinum, $2,201.68. The Brent crude, $90.77. The rand to the dollar, 16.38 to the euro, 18.95 to the British pound, 21.96. So on the Money Show, obviously the latest on oil. We will talk too about the property market, particularly about the office market in Gauteng. Last night we were told by Attack that their Waterfall development is virtually full. It does seem that Growth Point might be battling a little bit with their offices in Sandton. We'll look at that. And then we will also speak to someone who's right in the middle of what's happening in the gold sector at the moment. We'll be speaking to Kobus Lutz, the CEO at Pan African Resources. Do you know who his last boss was? No. He was at Shaka Resources. So his last boss was President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Okay.
We'll ask him what that was like. Stephen Curtis, EWN Business.
Thanks, Stephen. Money Show coming up between 6 and 8 o'clock. Right now it's 27 minutes to 6, and Bali Dlamini is back with us with the very latest news.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. The ad hoc committee investigating allegations of police corruption will be laying a criminal complaint against forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan for walking out of proceedings. The committee will also include a charge for sending threatening messages to Minister Senzo Mchunu Chief of Staff Cedric Nkabinde. The committee's complaint comes 2 weeks after the EFF laid its own criminal complaint against O'Sullivan for the same offences. Committee legal advisor Tilana Haley Starkey gave the committee an update today and says all documents are with the Secretary to Parliament.
As soon as he signs and commissions it, he will walk all the documents over to the police station and then lay a charge. And these include both the Nkabinde matter as well as the disrespect or walkout in terms of...
The case against 6 family members accused of killing 9 people for insurance payouts has now been transferred to the Polokwane High Court. They appeared briefly in the Polokwane Magistrates Court today, facing charges including murder, fraud and money laundering. According to police, between 2013 and 2024, the group fraudulently took out multiple life and funeral policies on several victims with the total value estimated at around 10 million rand. Limpopo NPA spokesperson Mashudu Malabi says the accused face a total of 47 counts.
They are facing 47 counts, including murder, money laundering, fraud and receiving proceeds of unlawful activities. The matter is postponed to 25 March 2026.
Let's stay in the court. 6 former Milnerton High School learners who were expelled for alleged bullying are appealing the school governing body and Western Cape Education Department's decision. The boys made a brief appearance in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today, where they face various counts of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. The charges relate to at least 8 incidents of alleged assault at the school, including a video which went viral on social media. Carlo Peterson reports.
The 6 accused learners were hauled before Cape Town Magistrates Court in October last year after a viral video showed them attacking a 16-year-old learner. 2 minor learners who face the same charges are attending proceedings in the Child Justice Court. Last month, the Western Cape Education Department confirmed the department upheld a recommendation by the school governing body to expel 6 learners from the school. WCED spokesperson Brona Hammond says 5 of the expelled learners are in grade 12 and 1 in grade 10.
The 6 learners have subsequently appealed this decision, which is now being considered by the provincial minister as the final appeal authority.
All of the accused learners will be back in court on the 24th of April. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
And in the UK, the Home Office has approved a request from the Metro Police Department to block a pro-Iran march planned for the weekend in London. The police made the request to block the protest to prevent serious public disorder. According to reports, a stationary protest will be allowed, but it will be strictly policed. The march is an annual event which is timed towards the end of Ramadan. A partly cloudy Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow with isolated showers expected. Lows of between 11 and 14 degrees and highs of between 20 and 23.
Germiston heading towards Katlong. You can still expect about a 30-minute delay N3 south from the Galdenays interchange to Rand Airport interchange due to an earlier accident. Northcliffe bumper-to-bumper traffic on Bayers Nordia between Judges and the N1. Bryanston traffic remains heavily backed up on Grosvenor Road between Bryanston Drive and Leslie.
The top story in EWN, the ad hoc committee investigating allegations of police corruption will be laying a criminal complaint against forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan for walking out of proceedings.
Clement Maniatella.
Weekday mornings,
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
Leo Bozel was speaking at a conference. Now, I have a few things that I take issue with what he said. Number 1, you don't come to our country and tell us that you don't care what our courts say. In this country, we respect the judiciary. So I find his comment that he doesn't care what the courts say about the Dubuli Bunu song arrogant. I find it to be disrespectful to our institutions. Does that mean that he can't disagree with our courts? No, it doesn't mean that. In fact, he can say that he holds a different view to what our courts have ruled around the song. But you cannot say to your hosts, you don't care what their courts say? I think this conduct is undiplomatic.
Clements Maniatella.
9 to 12 on 702.
On the go and your stomach suddenly not keeping up, that burn, bloating or reflux could be symptoms of an ulcer, and stress can make it feel even worse. Ulcernic offers triple action relief by coating your stomach lining with a protective layer, and it works for up to 6 hours. No prescription needed. Choose between suspension tablets or effervescent tablets. Keep an eye on the shelf for Ulcernic's new packaging. A fresh new look outside, same trusted relief on the inside. Visit the Ulcernic Facebook page for more.
For Mamotsatsi and Kensani of Design News, a beautiful room starts with a rock-solid connection. Tell us what was slowing down your growth.
It would have to be slow network coverage.
Now, Telkom Business Fiber lets the team process large renders while the landline keeps supplier calls coming in.
Get Call Light Fiber from 655 Rand per month and unlimited VoIP 1 from 99 Rand per month. Call 10213 or click telkom.co.za. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
Did you know that you have the power to ensure your daughter is fully protected from cervical cancer when she grows up? Yes. Protecting a daughter from cervical cancer is absolutely possible. And all that you need to do is ensure that your daughter gets the HPV vaccine at the age of 9. The HPV vaccine gives your daughter the best possible protection against cervical cancer and can prevent her from becoming part of the statistics. This message is brought to you by the Department of Health.
Managing your workforce shouldn't be complicated. That's why businesses choose Onacy, a proudly South African cloud-based payroll and HR solution. From payroll and e-recruitment to performance management and self-service tools, we streamline the way businesses handle their people. Scalable, secure, and always online, our system evolves with your needs because your workforce deserves the best. Switch to Onacy and experience payroll and HR done right. Visit onacy.com today.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, John. On your way from Limpopo to Gauteng, vice versa, immediately when you approach Mokopane, I think, alongside the road, you will see a lot of people selling something that looks like a coke or even used oil in a bottle of cold drink. I think 2-liter cold drink. I think it started during COVID, and ever since it hasn't stopped. I've never seen anyone stopping there trying to purchase those things. But those guys are always there. And can anyone who has ever bought whatever is being sold there explain what it is and what it's for? Because I'm so curious. Every time when I pass there, I see those people.
Yeah, thanks for those. Now, normally we'd go to sport now and we'd update you on what's happening in the traffic. But we've just... what we're going to do now, let me cut to the car chase. Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, is giving a briefing. We think there may be some important indications of how South Africa plans to respond to the current geopolitical turmoil, obviously centered on the country of Iran and involving Israel and the United States. So let's hear what the minister has to say.
Abilities that Brazil can gain from. We just need to strengthen and work more together to build up on our trade. We have also returned from the funeral of the late civil rights activist, Reverend Jesse Jackson, which were warmly and gladly welcomed by the American population, including and in particular Black Americans, who have shared with us their history of anti-apartheid activism and their continued willingness to work with the democratic South Africa to use their skills to develop our country and build beyond the 30 years of our democracy. We will, from tomorrow, the 12th to the 13th of March 2026, host SADC Council of Ministers here in the DERCO building. This session of Council of Meeting of Ministers is in our capacity as interim chair of the Council of Ministers of SADC, which is aimed to implement the theme of the 45th SADC Summit as adopted in August 2025 in Madagascar, in which the theme was, and it still is, advancing industrialization, agricultural transformation, and energy transition for a resilient SADC. As it may be recalled, South Africa in November 2025 was elected as the interim chair of SADC until August 2026. This was due to the unconstitutional changes of power in Madagascar. This meeting will also take stock of a number of SADC initiatives. It is preceded by a standing committee of senior officials and a special meeting of senior officials and experts on the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan, the RISDP 2020-2030 of SADC, which is a 10-year framework designed to deepen Southern African Development Community, regional integration and development, which has been held from the 4th to the 10th of March 2026 to prepare the draft agenda and report to the Council of Ministers. This will feed into all the other sectoral meetings that my colleagues and counterparts will hold here in South Africa and in Zimbabwe. Because of the unique nature of the interim chairing now of SADC, which we had to take over, we have agreed to share this responsibility with Zimbabwe. So some meetings will be held in South Africa, some will be held in Zimbabwe. And we can be able to share with you which ones will be held in South Africa, which ones will be held in Zimbabwe. If you're asking yourself which meetings, there will be sectoral meetings like meetings of ministers of finance, meetings of ministers of trade, meetings of ministers of minerals, those meetings. So they will be shared between ourselves and Zimbabwe for us to be able to absorb and carry this institution. It is important that SADC continues to function as an institution that must preserve the protocols of SADC and build on regional integration. South Africa's leadership is distinctively reflected in our stewardship of Agenda 2063, ensuring the continent's development blueprint remains on track. In this regard, I have also been elected to chair the monitoring plan and mechanism of Agenda 2063 of the African Union.
Okay, so we're going to come back to that briefing from Minister Ronald Lambula. He's mainly focusing on regional stuff, and I think the points that I think we're particularly keen to hear about, important as that briefing may have been so far, is South Africa's response to the major geopolitical things happening at the moment. So we'll come back to it, but in the meanwhile, let's update you on the traffic.
EWN Traffic.
EWN Traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS the word out to 45142 now, and you could save on car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. Karabo Charlie is here to let you know what's going on.
Well, some good news, John. That accident seen in Germiston N3 South near the Geldenhuys interchange has been cleared and traffic should be back to normal shortly. However, in Boksburg, expect about a 20-minute delay. This is due to roadworks N17 eastbound between Osborne and Carnival City. In Northcliffe, bumper traffic on Bayers Naudé between Judges and the N1. Bryanston traffic heavily backed up on Grosvenor Road between Cumberland and Leslie, and finally in Centurion. Can still expect about a 20-minute delay on the N1 northbound between John Foster and the R21 Flying Saucer interchange. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The Outsurance pointsmen know that every car on the road carries a story. There's a car full of groceries and a lady who will be attempting to make her mother-in-law's famous recipe for the family dinner tonight. The Outsurance pointsmen know it's not just a car in traffic, it's butterflies and a potential bonding moment. Every story is different and every story matters. That's why the Outsurance pointsmen have been doing what they do since 2005 in proud partnership with 702. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP.
Stay with 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
Okay, vital geopolitical developments underway at the moment, as you know, affecting all of us. You just have to look at the expected fuel price. Let's go back to Minister Ronald Lamola.
Civilian infrastructure across the region. This has also resulted in inflationary pressures, energy insecurity, and food insecurity as a result of the fertilizer shocks in the agricultural sector. South Africa reiterates its condemnation for the violation of Article 2.4 of the UN Charter by the United States and Israel, and the subsequent action of Iranian government, which through their response also violated the provisions of Article 51 and breached the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the GCC states, in particular where there was no evidence that the first strike by the US and Israel came from the GCC countries. The United Nations Security Council, now more than ever, is called upon to prioritize humanity over geopolitical preferences. This is an existential moment for multilateralism, which must reverberate in all conflict areas, including Sudan, South Sudan, and the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. We continue to urge all our citizens currently in the Middle East region to contact the respective South African embassies accredited to their countries of residence to ensure that they are registered with and that their whereabouts are known to the embassies. That in times of need and crisis, it's easy to communicate. Citizens traveling abroad for any reasons, whether it be for business, education, holiday, amongst others, are reminded to register with the South African embassies, consulate nearest to the destinations they are visiting. The list of contact details for missions abroad can be found on the department's website or the website of the various South African embassies and consulates. Citizens are also encouraged to download and register on the DERCO Travel Smart app, where you can also include details of your next of kin and log a case with the South African mission should you find yourself in distress while abroad. South African citizens are also advised to continue to monitor government platforms as well as reports from their residence countries for any relevant information and updates. We also continue to advise our citizens to check and verify job opportunities across the globe so that they don't fall prey to schemes and fraudsters across the globe on works opportunities or job opportunities that do not exist, and sometimes finding themselves falling into conflict zones and areas. With regards to our U.S. relations, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation has noted recent public remarks made by the United States Ambassador to South Africa. While South Africa welcomes active public diplomacy and the strengthening of bilateral ties, we emphasize that such engagements must remain consistent with established diplomatic etiquette and international protocols. In this regard, we have called in the Ambassador of the United States, Ambassador Boselli, to explain his undiplomatic remarks. And in his engagements and visits to various sites in South Africa, including the Apartheid Museum, District 6, and other historical places. In the engagements, he acknowledges that given our history South Africa needs redress and is willing to work with us constructively in this regard. I will later allow the Director General, Mr. Zane Dengo, to elaborate further on the discussion with the U.S. Ambassador. South Africa has consistently affirmed that the United States is a vital strategic partner for our economy and geopolitical issues, particularly on peace and security across the world. This relationship is not a one-sided relationship. South African companies maintain a significant investment in the United States, proportionate to our economy. It will not be possible for us to have the same size of investment to the US, given our economy size compared to the United States. But we have got some presence there, including in sectors such as energy and chemicals. Sasol is one of our leading companies invested in the USA. But there are also other South African companies that are there. And South Africa remains a leading supplier of critical minerals to the US. We continue to emphasize that critical minerals, there must be value addition in South Africa and in the African continent. And this is a partnership we look forward to continue to build with the United States. We reiterate that broad-based black economic empowerment is not reverse racism, as regrettably insinuated by the ambassador. It is a fundamental instrument designed to address the structural imbalances of South Africa's unique history. It is a constitutional imperative that the South African government can and will never abandon.
Okay, so the minister is still going on, and we'll dip in if we can, but I think two crucial points that have come out from what we've heard so far. It is, in diplomatic terms, a significant step in this ultra-polite realm for a government to ask an ambassador to come for a meeting and to explain certain things. It's regarded, I think it's referred to as a démarche. The other thing that caught my ear, by the way, was there was criticism of the US and Israel, but there was also criticism of Iran for their conduct in this particular war. So interesting stuff. We'll get back to it if we have any time for that. But first,
in the last 24 hours, this is what's happened in your world.
In response to recent attacks, Iran targeted key U.S. bases across the Middle East. This had a knock-on effect on the Strait of Hormuz, where ships carrying refined petroleum to South Africa face major disruptions, leaving the Republic facing possible fuel price shocks with potential spikes of between 5 and 8 rand per litre. However, the Department of Mineral Resources says there's no need to panic, citing contact with local oil companies and flat out saying there's no immediate risk.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent.
Celebrate the power of African storytelling. Join Freedom Park in collaboration with the South African State Theatre for the 13th Ungasali Storytelling Festival on 14 March 2026 at the South African State Theatre in Pretoria. Experience powerful performances through poetry, theatre, music, and traditional storytelling as we celebrate the voices and stories that shape our heritage. Tickets are available at Web Tickets for 150 Rand. The Ungasali Storytelling Festival, where African stories come alive. Don't miss it.
Sorry I'm late, Sevi. Had to fetch my lucky putter. No worries, let's go. We're teeing off in an hour. Great. We're taking your car. Can't. It's already taken. What do you mean taken? It was right here when I left a few minutes ago. I sold it to Weber Cars and made a whole lot of green. Birdie told me that's the best way to sell your car. Not only the best way, it's the fair way. Kom ons vat die pad.
Don't be doff, be savvy. We buy cars geared for a fast sale, geared for you.
This is what home internet should feel like. Get the Vodacom 5G home router with 600 gigs and 30 megabits per second download speed for just $529 per month over 36 months. And that's not all. You'll also get a Xiaomi TV box 3rd gen with $1,399. Stream in 4K at no extra cost. Your home fully connected, fully entertained. Exclusive to Vodacom World. Visit us today and get connected. T's and C's apply. Further together, Vodacom.
702 Drive with John Perlman was proudly brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Let's go back to that briefing then with South Africa's International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola. Lots going on.
Constitutional commitment to multilateralism and the peaceful settlement of disputes. South Africa's non-alignment does not entail a preference for any geopolitical bloc. Rather, it represents our ability to engage all international partners and take positions on a case-by-case basis, guided by our human rights outlook and international law. We remain steadfast in our resistance to being drawn into great power constellations, prioritizing instead a global governance system that is fair and inclusive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Tichi. Do you want to come now or should we take...
Okay, so that brings to an end that briefing from International Relations Minister, International Relations and Cooperation, to give the ministry its full title, Ronald Lamola. Coming right at the end of the show, there's some very, very important stuff happening there. I thought the comments on the conflict in the Middle East, criticism of all parties involved, and very focused, anyway. Let me just leave it at that. And then the engagement with the recently arrived U.S. Ambassador Leo Bozell will, I'm sure, prompt many debates and discussions. Stephen Curtis with the Money Show between 6 and 8, I'm sure, will engage with that. And then there is Aubrey from 8 to 12, where I'm sure it will be discussed as well. I'm John Perlman. Good night.
And now, The Money Show.
With Stephen Curtis, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
And DSTV channel 856.
The Money Show with Stephen Curtis is brought to you by ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking, proud sponsors of GTR Africa 2026, enabling trade flows for growth. ABSA is a registered FSP. Good evening. On your Money Show tonight, oil prices rise again despite the International Energy Agency promising to release stocks. And 2 of our airlines put up their prices as a result. Just days into the job, our government issues the new U.S. ambassador with a démarche. What now for our relationship with Washington is the fact that JSE is losing so many listings, making it hard